Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another evening of exciting racing action in the series we all know and love because it is the series that keeps the Skippy alive year in year out. That's right, we are back for another pair of rounds and the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5 has brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly sponsored by both Musical Money Limited and also the Old Git Racing team. We continue the story of our season by making our way into the second half. Last time out we were in the US state of Michigan for what was the Detroit racing circuit, in particular Belle Isle Park, a circuit relegated to the history books but one revived on the simulator, and it has begun our tour of the US of A. But with it as well we concluded the first half of the season, and as we make our way into the second half of the season for rounds 13 and 14 we keep the theme of the USA very much live, but we've made our way to West Virginia for the none more important circuit of what is the Summit Point Motorsports Park. Known as Summit Point Motorsports Park in reference to the entire set of facilities, it does comprise of two mainstay circuits, one known as the Jefferson Circuit in reference to the county in which the circuit sits, and the other one, the one we're going to be racing on, where it takes the full title of the Summit Point Raceway, a circuit which has been open since 1969, and what a circuit it is. When it originally opened, it was a host to major international series, and also those national to US of A, but over time, its importance in the motorsporting world has somewhat declined perhaps at that level, but it has never declined when it comes to importance at a club and domestic level, whereby year in year out you'll see smaller series make their way onto the tarmac, now 1.98 miles in length, and it is a circuit that has gradually evolved over its extensive history, whereby the main thing that has changed over it is the introduction of the infamous hairpin section at turns 5, 6, 7 and 8, but beyond that the character of the circuit has stayed very much alive as it rolls its way through the local West Virginian countryside and forestry, and that's exactly what our drivers will need to tackle today if they want to come away with some big points in the fact there's plenty of elevation change around here, and also there are plenty of sweeping bends, and when it's long straights keeping our drivers connected together, it is going to be a circuit where pack racing, which we know in the Skip Barber Community Trophy is the absolute integral part of this series, well that pack racing is going to be at its peak. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight on YouTube. Indeed, go to youtube.com and search for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP. And you can be tuning in on a weekly basis and catching all the racing action as it unfolds over the entirety of Season 5. In the content booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I will bring you all your racing action as it gets underway today, and indeed over the entirety of the season. And don't be shy, feel free to say hi if you are currently tuning in and have access to the YouTube chat, because we always like to hear from you, and I do believe there might be some of you tuning in already. But as we get ready to go racing today, well, what exactly is our schedule? Well, as we can see, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time UTC, and we're in approximately will be 13 minutes time. We're making our way into our qualifying session as always at 7:45 in the evening, and that'll be for 10 minutes the series able to put themselves on pole. That'll be pole position for the first of our two races, the round number 13 sprint race, 20 minutes in duration, expected to get underway at approximately 5 to 8 this evening, after which we'll take a brief breather before returning at what will be approximately 20 past 8 for none other than the feature race. Round number 14 in the championship, 30 minutes, the all-important strategy call as well, the mandatory pit stop, and all of our drivers will keep us guessing until that final checkered flag. But as we make our way into this round, well, let's give you a recap of the story coming out of Detroit and how exactly we've got to this point. So here we go, let's take a trip back in time. And as we can see, last time out rounds 11 and 12, we've begun our American tour at the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle Circuit on the 25th of January. There we had the first of our one-lap shootout qualifying sessions. Indeed, all the pressure on over a single lap plus the outlap. And what we got to see in qualifying, well, there was one driver who in the end did not take pole position. Our driver who we normally associate with pole positions being none other than Adam Miles, but instead he started second behind Tim Hendrickson, who led the way in the one-lap shootout by minor margins, but Hendrickson absolutely delivered. However, when it came to the first race in the round 11 sprint race, it would be Adam Miles who would take the win, with himself, Daniel Otuga and Tim Hendrickson pulling away as a trio, but unfortunately an error coming out of turn number 5 in towards turn number 6 for Hendrickson, which was a technical error, not an error of the driver, so he made his way into the wall going towards turn number 6 and his race was in bits. And then for Adam Miles and Daniel Otuga, it was then a story of two drivers running to the finish, and Adam Miles in the end was able to control the narrative all the way to the finish line. Daniel Otuga was the second place finisher, and then Steff Hermann, well, he he spent the majority of the race having to deal with the second pack of cars, which he was heading in the fight for fall through to 8th, and that was himself, Marcus Byfeldt, Jeff Randall, Nathan Wade, and Brian Kelly. And in Sunny, it became a more intriguing battle for third place with the retirement of Hendrickson, and it was Hermann was able to hold everybody at bay in order to make his way backwards to the podium. As for the round 14, the round 12, I should say, feature race there, getting around ahead of myself. Well, in the round 12 feature race, it was Daniel Otuga in Detroit who absolutely delivered. Having started in 14th place, he found himself in 6th by the end of the open lap due to a huge incident between several drivers on the exit of turn number 7, and indeed an incident nobody saw coming, but in the end everyone had to avoid it as best as they could. But he was able to capitalise, moved into 6th, and from there moved to the front of the field for an absolutely brilliantly executed fuel-saving strategy, and was able to take the win by 6 seconds. Meanwhile, the rest of the podium was made up of Brian Kelly, who, given how his race 1 went after his contact initially with Jeff Randall, where he did not show any signs of being upset about it, and he recovered well to a second place finish, making sure he could use the undercut to his advantage in the pit stops, and Marcus Byfeldt made his way backward to the podium, and in the end he followed a similar strategy to Daniel Otuga, although he didn't quite pull it off with aplomb as Otuga did, but he was still able to finish on that podium, and that sets us up very nicely then here for the 1st of February 2026 at the Summit Point Raceway, of which, in terms of our qualifying format, it will be the last of our 3-lap average type sessions, and we'll give you a reminder on how exactly those worked very shortly. And after today, of course, in a Sunday's time, on the 8th of February, we'll be making our way over to the state of Ohio for the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. And coming into this pair of rounds then, well, what about the standings? Well, here they are. How exactly do they stand in the Drivers' Championship? And it's Steff Hermann who leads after now 12 rounds of racing, and his advantage, well, it stands at 101 points. And he really is right in the 101 right now when it comes to managing a championship, because the key theme here is the fact that he's been scoring just as well, if not slightly better than most of his rivals. Albeit the biggest scorer last time out was Daniel Otuga, but you'll notice he's all the way down in 6th place. Hermann, meanwhile, gaining 1 more point over Marcus Byfeldt, therefore he is holding a healthy championship lead, and Hermann right now really living up to the standard, which is if you lay the foundations early on in the season, then everyone else is going to have to try and uproot them later on, and that's exactly what we're seeing in the hunt for second place. Byfeldt has now moved into second with Brian Kelly just behind by 14 points, and it's a further 7 points back to Adam Miles, with Jeff Randall a further 10 points behind, and then you do have a sizable, what is there, none other than 39-point gap to Daniel Otuga. But the key thing being that Byfeldt, Kelly, Miles and Randall are all names that we've come to associate with the scramble for second place, and they're all taking points off each other, but nobody is taking points off of Steff Hermann, and that is the way the standings are going. Daniel Otuga, meanwhile, well, he's moved from 7th to 6th, and his thought process today will be, if I can keep repeating what I did in Detroit for the remainder of the season, I might just be able to hunt down Hermann, but time is running out if he wants to do so, given the fact he is missing 2 rounds at the moment at least. However, he's got to keep in mind the fact there will be 2 drop scores come the end of the season. Then Nathan Wade sits in 7th place on 167 points, and well, Wade, of course, with technical issues only a few rounds ago, but those technical issues have been put to bed, thankfully, and we've seen him back on the grid very quickly indeed, and he's ahead of Adam Tompkins by the best part there of none other than 16 points, with Christopher Gerrits Jr. in 9th, ahead of Gordon van den Bergen, who rounds off the top 10, and well, he's only a point behind Gerrits Jr., and he's only 16 points ahead of Remco Placier, and the Raging Turtle Racing driver still having a frustrating runarounds in recent history, and he'll be hoping those frustrations may be able to go away, and the same applies for his teammate Titus de Jong, who has sat in 12th once again. Peter Suapanki sits in 13th, unfortunately not able to make the race today. We're not going to be seeing the Flying Finn out there, who's on 96 points and will most likely drop outside the top 15 for the first time this season, and the same with George Mattock, unfortunately not able to make the races today due to work commitments. How I do believe he may be tuning in. If he is tuning in right now, hello to you, George. It's a shame we won't get to see you on the grid today. We do hope to see you back in a week's time at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. And Dennis Johansson completes the top 15 there, missing out on the racing last time out, but hopefully we'll get to see him back in full force and fury, because we do know he is a very quick driver when he's able to put his head to it. Outside the top 15, from 84 points for Dennis Johansson, it's an 83 points for Chris Wayne, who only sits a point behind there and picked up a good score last time out, particularly in what was the sprint race. The feature race, well, he was slightly hindered, some would say, by what happened at turn number 7 on the opening lap. But to be fair, it's not always about how you start the race, it's about how you finish. And he got to the finish line, no questions asked, and made sure to pick up some valuable points. In 17th place, it's Josephine Becker on 76, 5 ahead of Neil Gardner, with Martin van Eckelen and Marcus Dorner completing the top 20. 20. It's a further 6 points back to Kevin Budgeon there, who's moved up into 21st, continuing to build that momentum. Tim Hendrickson as well. What could it have been if he had finished race number 1? Well, many would argue perhaps he would have been the man to be able to secure what would have been the absolute lion's share of the points and then move himself all the way up into the top 15, but it wasn't to be due to that retirement in the sprint race. And then we do see Jesus Cabal ahead of Tom Payne, with Simon Wareham completing your top 25. And it's a further 5 points back to Ludwig Sauer ahead of Frederick Neptune, where Jerome Welling, Neil Bamber and Frankie D completing your top 30. And well, Frankie doing a good job there, moving gradually forward after some good performances last time out at Belle Isle Park, and he'll be hoping that momentum is now going to stay with him as he tries to chase down the top 20. Well, that's how your top 30 stand in the Drivers' Championship. We've got some fresh faces on the grid as well today, and we look forward to introducing those very shortly. But speaking of our host venue for today, here it is, the Summit Point Raceway Circuit, or known as the Summit Point Motorsports Park, and the Summit Point Raceway is what we are racing on. Well, this is located near what is the unlocalized region of Summit Point in Jefferson County of the US state of West Virginia, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track maps that come with it. Grand total of 10 corners. Many of these corners have really seen plenty of miles rumped past them by drivers through the ages. However, these corners as well, they are very, very familiar to all of our Skippy drivers. Indeed, it is one of the founding circuits of this series, and it is one of the circuits that comes back year in, year out, season after season, because it's all known and loved. And as you can see from the diagram, it's two-dimensional, so it doesn't show you all the elevation changes, of which there are some rather aggressive ones, particularly the run through turn number 3 in towards 4, and the downhill descent from turns 4 into 5, 6, and 7. However, what you can also note is the fact we've got several extended straights, including the start-finish straight and the run from turn number 9 in towards turn number 10, and, of course, the run from turn number 3 in towards turn number 5. What this does, it means the field never quite breaks away, and what we can expect over the course of the racing is that our drivers will gradually form these extended packs, but indeed, any fighting could reel them all back together as quickly as that. And many a sweep and bend around here, and most corners offering the opportunity to go at least 2 if not 3 wide, and therefore Summit Point Raceway really is going to deliver some intrigue today. For as they roar the way down that start finish straight in towards the opening braking zone of turn number 1, it's a double apex right-hander of turns 1 and 2, which will see our drivers either go out wide and try and go for the switchback or keep it nice and tight. Get it right and they'll make the way in towards turn number 3. Now it's a slightly off-camber left-hander followed by a right-hand kink that then sees our drivers go up over their eyes, and then they'll descend quickly through 4 and in towards the very sharp turn number 5. Now in 1969, when this circuit was introduced to the world, it didn't quite have the hairpin sequence you see of turns 5 through to 8. If you're a little bit of a historian and like information like this, well, we've got you prepped for this one, because it used to be a hairpin that actually ran from turn 5, as you see on this diagram, into where turns number 8 is now. So indeed, what you would see is a hairpin essentially joining the dots together between turns 5 and 8 on this diagram, but it was opened up to create a bit more of a hairpin style corner where drivers could actually battle at, whereas it wasn't seen as conducted to battling all the way back then, and that was introduced in 1973. So indeed, only 4 years into the lifespan of the circuit, we saw the layout you now see today on screen, and what you'll see very shortly on trackside pictures, that layout has been in place since 1973. You do the mathematics. That is a grand total of what will be 53 years later this year. That's absolutely incredible. Indeed, that goes to show you that sometimes the classics don't need changing. But as the drivers then make their way through the hairpin sequence of turns 5, 6, 7, and 8, the tightest section on the circuit, they then find themselves roaring their way back through the curve of 9 and on towards turn number 10 to complete the lap and do it all over again. In terms of our rules before we go racing, we'll cast setup wise. This is an open setup series, and our drivers can bring a setup of their choosing to each and every session, where it be practice, qualifying, or the races. Fuel loads, they will be restricted to 47% for all race day sessions, and we'll see with regards to qualifying, it is the final one of our 3-lap average style sessions. What exactly does that mean? Well, the session itself shall be closed, or drivers have an isolated instance of the circuit in which they can try to deliver their laps. But they have the outlap and 3 flying laps, and it's the average of each driver's 3 fastest laps that shall set their final time. Now this of course means that this is going to feel quite similar in a way to the 1-lap shootout, albeit it's a 3-lap shootout with all 3 laps they need to be valid. If a driver invalidates any one of their 3 laps, suddenly they will not have a time set, and therefore they'll be starting from the very back of the grid. So that's going to be important when we do make our way to the grid for our sprint race. Now in terms of how the races commence, they'll commence by a standing start, as is a tradition of this series, with 1 fast repair being available in each race should it be needed. A drive-through penalty shall be awarded at 17 instant points. If a driver gets to 21, they will be disqualified, but hopefully we don't see that. And in terms of how we set the grid for the feature race, or round number 14 today, it shall be set based on the finishing positions of the sprint race, with the top 15 positions being inverted. What does that mean in layman's terms? It means the winner of the sprint race, or round number 13, may start in 15th place for the feature race, places. Meanwhile, we continue to invert that all the way down to the 15th place finisher, who went in and start on pole position for the purposes of the feature race, and those who finish 16th and downwards in the sprint, you guessed it right, they will start on pole for the purposes of our final race of the day. But as we get ready to go then, there is one mandatory pit stop in the feature race in which drivers must refuel. And well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, everything else in the pit stops is optional. And let's head back to circuit side. And as we do, well, right now we've only got a couple of minutes left in this practice warm-up session. And dude, oh, that's a spin round there for one of the drivers, getting it very wrong. Couldn't quite see who that was in the time. But somebody definitely went around. I think that was Simon Wareham there, demonstrating what happens if you get it wrong at turn number 5 at the apex. But he does put the car onto the grass there and ease his way back on. But with 30 seconds left on the clock, he won't be making that mistake. Oh, another driver going around there. We've got a couple of drivers going around. That was Gordon van den Bergen getting it completely wrong. He's towed his way back to the pit lane. And, well, hopefully that's not a sign of things to come. Now, we should point out, if you're noticing those small spray vortices coming off the back of our cars, including that for Chris Wayne, we do have the risk of rain here today. There has been a little bit of rain in the early stages of the day, and particularly going into this practice session, although the tarmac, for the most part, does seem to be dry, barring what is some small patches of water on the sidelines. So, therefore, that could be a figure, and also we do have the risk of rain potentially coming back as we go racing. Well, that's definitely going to be on the minds of our drivers here, but without further ado, first and foremost on their minds, it's going to be qualifying, because here we go, ladies and gentlemen. 10 minutes, 3 flying laps, and a 3-lap average. Who's going to put it on pole? Let's find out. And, well, we go from dry conditions to definitely rainfall in here as we get set to go racing. And, indeed, it is going to be intriguing because with rain falling into a qualifying session, this is going to serve to mix things up. Now, as our drivers make their way out the pit lane, well, the tyres they do have are all-purpose tyres on these cars. So, therefore, we're not going to be showing you any graphics on the tyre tower to highlight when a driver is running what will be wet tyres versus dry tyres, because they are known as AP tyres, or ones that can be used in both the wet and the dry. So therefore, there's no risk of running the slick versus a treaded tyre. These tyres do have a little bit of tread on them, and that means that for our drivers, they've got to be able to adapt to the conditions. And indeed, there's not going to be any help with regards to the tyre. Although they can change the setup of the car, they can change their tyre pressures. They feel that's going to make a difference. But with the risk of rain then, well, that's only going to make things even more treacherous. It looks as though we've got a dry circuit initially, but now with the rain falling, this circuit is going to get wetter as the session goes on. And with the laps around here, tantamount to the best part of almost 2 minutes, well, that is also going to add up to the fact you want to get these laps in as quickly as you can, because the wetter the circuit gets, naturally, the slower the circuit gets. So everyone right now is going to need to sprint here in this 3-lap average qualifying session. It's going to feel as though it's the most pressured one of the season so far. And I do not say that in jest, as all our drivers right now will very quickly need to get themselves up to speed. But as we do say hello to George Mattock there in the YouTube chat, who says, looking forward to the rain. We'll be back next week at Mid-Ohio. And we also say hello there to KMSR1997, who says, have fun. And, well, I think wishing everyone to have fun out there. And indeed, the good old saying, of course, for what will be the grid, good luck and have fun out there. And try not to break a leg, albeit, as our drivers make the way onwards here. Titus de Jong make his way on down. And as he does so, we're getting ready to make his way into the braking zone for the first time today in angering qualifying. And well, the times you see on the tyre on the left hand side, they will not be the final average times, they will be individual lap times that our drivers will be delivering. Unfortunately, we can't show you the 3-lap averages when they come in right at the end, ladies and gentlemen, but what you will see is the best times of each of our drivers there, and that'll give you an idea of where the pace sits for them all. But as we wait for our drivers to get their first laps on the board, we need to do some introductions for our 3 new drivers who made the way here today to Summit Point, including Christian Perez, who's back on the grid once again in the number 89. Very happy to see him returning. Indeed, I do remember him all the way back in season 1 of the series, if my memory serves me correctly, and I believe he is still running a variant of his original livery. So therefore, whilst the times have changed, it has been the best part now of 2.5 years. Well, time has definitely not seen Perez's enthusiasm for the Skippies wane away whatsoever, and we're very happy to have him back. Good luck to Christian today. We also do have a new face here, going from the Spaniard to the Australian driver here of Ryan Chinoweth, as he comes up the hill and in towards turns 3 and 4, and we're running in the number 4 there. And lovely livery machine. In fact, a similar livery in a way to Perez, albeit their similar background colour on the car, but perhaps the logo is a bit different there due to sponsorship and team's reasons. But we wish him all the best of luck on his debut. And as for our 3rd driver who is new to the grid today, we are just trying to find him at the moment. It's none other than Miguel Cusena, and well, he makes his way on down here as well, and welcomes the number 28 driver. And I believe he might be a regular from the mid-seasons, albeit I haven't seen him on the grid to be before, but we have have a huge community here for the Skip Barber Community Trophy, so I may miss 1 or 2 drivers there, and that's not because they're not important, but just trying to keep up with them is a challenge, of course, and I'm sure you'll all agree with me. But as he makes his way around and running on through, we do look to Gordon von den Bergen, as we do see KMSR there saying Currywurst King von den Bergen, let's go. And well, as he makes his way onwards there, I do like that little joke there. And well, Gordon von den Bergen is known for many a thing. He's also known for his love of fizzy drinks, and that's why he's got Fanta on the side of the car. But Chris Wayne puts the first flying lap on the board there, a 22.346. And indeed, in the underestimate, the lap times being to the best part of 2 minutes. Perhaps an exaggeration, more to 1.5 minutes or just under there. But the point being right now in the fact that indeed, as that rain has stopped falling, and then it's falling elsewhere on the circuit, so it's not falling around the hairpin, but it's falling at turn number 9. Well, therefore, all drivers very quickly trying to get themselves into the temperature zone and getting these laps on the board through the simple fear and a worry, which is they are going to run out of time shortly. As in fact, I do believe we are going to be seeing all those laps come through very soon, and we are getting these qualifying laps in very quickly. Daniel Otuga coming across the line there, sets the benchmark at 1:21.344 for the fastest single lap delivered over the session. Marcus Byfeldt comes through, and meanwhile, Miguel Cuisina has made his way all the way out towards second there on a 21.518. Lovely lap from him, but then Christian Perez goes even faster. That's a 21.499. So Perez delivering well, and right now, well, how's it all going to end in this session? We will have to see as they all cover through, but right now, everybody putting some good times on the board there, no doubt about it, and we need to get an on-board lap with somebody, and we are going to be jumping on board with none other than Dennis Johansson, the man we were wondering if he was going to be here today, but he definitely is here, which is great to see. And well, your Season 4 champion takes us away, ladies and gentlemen, for a flying lap of the Summit Point Raceway. So he makes his way down full throttle as he goes up towards top gear at 21.444. That's his initial banker time. And now he'll make his way into the braking zone. Dog on the front of the car there. I wonder if that's a picture of his own dog. I'll have to ask him one day. But breaking his way down to turn 1, breaking at the 100-metre cone there, down to first gear. Now making his way through the right-handers turn 1 and 2. Nice tight exit line there, coming out of 1 in towards 2. And now making his way all the way out towards turn number 3. Looking over to his right-hand side here for his brake marker. This is more done on memory rather than the marker. And chucking the car in, taking plenty of apex curb. Go high, however, and it will cause you to understeer wide, as Johansson demonstrates. How he keeps it just within track limits. He now comes over the crest and down into 4. Throwing the car into the right-hander, keeping the car over to the right-hand side as much as possible. And now onto the brakes, down to first gear. As he comes in towards the hairpin segment, well, through the left, in towards the right of turn number 6, and now just taking it nice and easy through. Here it's all about car positioning as he builds up the speed, builds up the gears, avoids the puddle on the apex of turn number 8, turn number 7 I should say, and also the one on turn number 8, and now in towards turn number 9 he goes, and as he does so, switching from left into right here, and Dennis Johansson right now absolutely smooth. And that's the important part of doing a good lap in the wet, or indeed in any conditions, is a smooth lap is a quick lap. It may not look the fastest, but it's definitely a lot faster than it looks, as he trips his way in towards turn number 10 there, just avoiding the puddles in the apex, as he makes one down. Well, it's been a good lap from Dennis Johansson, but what's it going to be this time as he comes across the line? It's a 21.461, so not quite as quick as his previous best. Oh, goodness me, Dennis Johansson decides to launch it into the air there. Well, I get the feeling he might have actually invalidated his lap, and well, in fact, no, he's not invalidated his lap, he's just decided to end things in style there as we double check our data. So Dennis Johansson there saying to the world, well, I've done all my 3 laps there, and well, I want to wait and see where he lines up, but he was enjoying putting himself skyward there and definitely showing the fact that these skippies can get airborne if you can find a ramp to launch them off of. But as we do look to Miguel Cuisena as he comes in towards the final quarter, where he's coming into the pit lane here, having delivered all of his laps. 3 minutes left on the clock. Is anybody still waiting to get a lap on the board? The answer seems to be no. Out of those who are out of the circuit right now, as we do look to Pedro Meramon Cladera as he comes down in towards the left-hander at turn number 5. I think Cladera here just trying to put together some more practice laps for himself because he is currently the lowest in terms of individual lap times. He is the lowest place driver. However, wait to see how the 3-lap average plays out when we do swap that around and go to the grid. We do apologise for that. It's a limitation of the overlay we do have, as we can't show you the 3-lap average as far as I'm aware, or at least at this time. But if we do find a way to be able to do so in the future, we will do so, ladies and gentlemen. But as our number 99 driver makes his way into the pit lane with 2 minutes left on the clock, well, the reason we are not bringing out the checker flag on this session is because we have Martin van Ickelen and also David Elliott yet to get laps on the board, but it does look as though they've opted to stay in the pit lane, and as the circuit does go a little bit quiet, we have Adam Miles still out there, and well, he's going to get every millimetre of driving in he can here. I think he's trying to understand where exactly the circuit is starting to get slipperier, as that rain is gradually increasing here. It's quite light rain, to be fair. However, light rain or what is heavy rain, regardless, having some more water on the circuit does not help. But it looks so in terms of the individual lap state, it is going to be Daniel Otuga who will be taking the prize for the fastest individual lap in qualifying. From the data we've got, Adam Miles, meanwhile, very close behind, but we will see how that translates into their qualifying times when we do head to that grid with only a minute and a half left on the clock. But Miles makes his way on down here. And well, we do know that Adam, a very, very strong driver. Runner-up in Season 4. Meanwhile, in Seasons 3 and 2, he was your champion. He is your two-time champion of this series. And indeed, with the way the championships have gone, Nathan Wade was the very first champion back in Season 1. And Dennis Johansson bookending the other side in Season 4, and Miles in the middle. But he's always been in the thick of it. And many of you may remember the fact that with 13 wins in Season 1, he fell short in the end because he missed 6 rounds of the championship. So therefore, it did mean he had 2 0 scores he could not drop, and even then he was only the best part of 13 points behind Nathan Wade, your Season 1 champion. But to be fair to Nathan Wade as well, whilst the statistics would say that Adam Miles in theory, if he'd been able to make those 2 rounds, would have been champion, Wade put together a very good championship campaign, and when he was sharing the grid with Adam Miles, he kept Miles honest every step of the way and also stayed with Miles, and that was the difference. But also Adam Miles right now, he's had a good run so far this season, but understandably he's also thinking about the fact that this season is a long one. We have still got plenty of rounds of racing to go, even though we're going to the second half, and points are becoming gradually more precious. But right now he'll focus on the first objective of the day, which is to get a good start as we get underway very shortly in race number 1. Because as Miles makes his way into the pit lane, ladies and gentlemen, that is qualifying complete. And well, let's see how they all line up then for round number 13 of the championship, as we see all our drivers make their way into the pits, but shortly they'll be back out on that start-finish straight to grid up. And as they all make the way onto the grid, this is how they line up with the 3-lap qualifying averages. And it is Daniel Otuga who takes pole position here for round number 13 in Season 5 of the Skip Barber Community Trophy, and he takes pole by almost 2 tenths over Adam Miles. Behind the leading pair, it'll then be Marcus Byfeldt, line up behind his fellow countryman directly, but he starts third on the grid. Christian Perez on his debut round starts in 4th there, the Spaniard, ahead of Brian Kelly, with the American on the home soil once again putting himself firmly inside the top 5. Dennis Johansson starts 6th, only what was 300ths behind, with then newcomer Ryan Chinoweth starting 7th there, the Australian driver just ahead of Miguel Crucena, and while the Spanish driver there doing very well as well. The newcomers definitely really making themselves felt on this grid. Starting 9th is Steff Hermann, the German driver just ahead of Jeff Randall for the old Git Racing team, and then on row number 6 it's Nathan Wade and Remco Plaisir. The Raging Turtle Racing drivers followed up by Gordon Vandenbergen with Stickhead Racing and his own teammate of Titus de Jong, and behind the Dutchman it will then be the Swede of Christopher Gerrits Jr. ahead of Roddy van der Meeden. And on number 9 in terms of your rows, it's going to be Simon Wareham, who starts 17th ahead of Frankie D with season best qualifying points in 18th, ahead of Dave Dowson and none other than Chris Wayne. And behind the Old Git Racing team driver, it will then be 21st place for Jesus Cabal ahead of Joshua Harley, with the priorities that Marcel de Hint and Tom Payne line up on your 12th row of the grid ahead of Ronnie Schubert and none other than what will be Noel Richie Robinson. And there's going to be Pedro Maramon Cladera, joined on the final full row of the grid by Martin van Ickelen with no qualifying lap set, nor for David Elliott, who'll be starting last but not least 29th on this grid. So 29 cars have made the journey to West Virginia, ladies and gentlemen, and we are waiting for the last couple to get themselves into their slots on the grid. But as they're all almost ready to go, we're almost ready to go for 20 minutes of initial racing action here. And indeed, for Daniel Otuga, it is a long run down towards turn number 1. But how long can he keep everyone behind him? We're about to find out. So it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go here for race 1 number of the day on the Summit Point Raceway as they roar the way away. And Otuga right now gets a good start there as Miles tucks in immediately behind. Further back, it's not as fortunate for everyone to be able to tuck in line astern, as we do see a cheeky peek from Christian Perez immediately going to the outside. So does Miles here, and will it be initial swap and change between them all? We're about to see as they come through a bit of standing water on the inside apex, and that doesn't upset too many drivers, but everyone is safely away and making their way up towards turns 2 and 3. But as they do, unfortunately, Martin van Ickelen has not made his way way out the pit lane, so the car's got technical issues. We may not see him in this race, maybe we won't see him in the second race either, but hopefully that's not the case. Ball of the field now coming through turn number 3. Your top 10 safely on through, as Nathan Wade, meanwhile, falling back a little bit here behind Jeff Randall, as they fight over 10th place, now coming down in towards the hairpin. And, well, no rain falling at the moment, so the rain has gone away once again. Oh, that's gone very sideways there, and that's Brian Kelly. Kelly has gone round before he's even completed half of the open lap. And unfortunate for Kelly there, was he pushed, or was that of his own volition with cold tyres and cold brakes? We'll try and see very shortly when we can, ladies and gentlemen. That's not the way you want to start your day. As meanwhile, the field makes its way back with itself to complete the opening lap, of which there's going to be many. There's going to be at least, about 12 or 13 laps in this 20-minute race. But as they're coming down right now, Miles definitely starting to build a bit of a lead here, having held off Daniel Otuga right at the start. Well, right now, Otuga, I think, trying to come back at him when he can, but it's not going to be easy. As Otuga here gets back into the drive car running wide. That's Gino F going out wide into the gravel. Another car goes wide as well. They're all slipping loose there, and that's going to be Frankie D falling down the order as D ran a bit too wide at turn number 10, and I can imagine that might be due there to the fact it's a very cold circuit and the standing water that is on this circuit, the damp patches do not help. But meanwhile, as the drivers come down to the braking zone next time around, we do see a 3 wide there towards the rear of the field, and this is going to be Maron Caldera, Dahin and Schubert together, with Maron Caldera up the inside, Marcel Dahin going around the outside, and in the end, well, it's going to be Schubert who puts himself right in the middle. He goes to the switch back here, he covers off Dahin, but is he able to get back ahead into 22nd place ahead of Maron Caldera? The answer is going to be no. Instead, he's going to be caught behind there as they make the way up the hill. But from there, we now come to what is your top 6 as they start to pull away from the rest of the field. This is 2 wide between Perez and Byfeldt as they go through the left and in towards the right at turns 5 and 6. As they get ready to battle under braking again, immediately Byfeldt backing out there, knowing they're just costing each other time by fighting this hard. Meanwhile, a bit further back there, that is going to be Nathan Wade is falling down the order like a stone. Wade is down to 17th place. I think he's gone deep at turn number 5. We haven't quite seen that at the start of it. We've seen the consequence of it, and that is he's lost the best part of 6 places so far in this lap. And with Gino F, the man who went wide at turn number 10 just behind him, I think the Australian driver here might have some aspirations to make his way back through as quickly as he can after that brilliant qualifying points that puts him 7th on the grid, whereas Wade started in 11th. But looking up the inside then, here he goes in towards turn number 10. Wade on the outside, but then they both back off there to give each other racing room. And now down that start finish straight. Miles, meanwhile, well, he's too wide with Daniel Otuga. However, this could be the sign of an early swap coming along. Otuga in the end has to back out. He hasn't got the overspeed. Further back, it's going to be 2 by 2 here as it's Gordon van den Bergen having to fight his way versus Remco Pleisier. And Pleisier moving up into 9th place now from a 12th place start, so he's a relatively good start. And well, the Raging Turtle racing machine of Titus de Jong has also made some progress from 14th to 12th. And he's got Rody van der Meijden, his fellow countryman from the Netherlands, all over the back of him. Further back, Nathan Wade fighting still with Gino F, and Gino F looking to defend. And Wade wanting to get on through here, but these two definitely have not got the memo, which is to work together. They're not playing the game of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. They're playing the full-on game of the enemy of my enemy is still my enemy. As Wade there tucks in between himself and Cabal. Getting ready to come down to the hairpin. Jesus Cabal just waiting behind, and right now I think he's really having to figure out what's the most patient way to find his way past the pair in front of him, because they don't seem to be able to unlock themselves for each other, albeit they're going to do some absolutely epic racing, no doubt about it. But as our drivers make the way towards the end of this 3rd tour of the circuit, we need to take a look back at the race start, ladies and gentlemen, and how everything started off. So this was for your race start then. And well, we looked at Adam Miles, the man who did take the lead in the end as they all got the green flag launch. And well, it was going to be a slick start from everybody up and down the order. But for Adam Miles in the end, tucked into the toe. No real excitement there initially. Everyone went to pick up the draft of the next car. But you can see further back from what was about 13th place downward, everyone going 2-3 wide. Some slower starters there, perhaps causing the field to open up. And Miles just swept round the outside of Daniel Otuga to take the lead. But the question mark is, what happened to Brian Kelly? Because he was none other than your 5th place starter, and he had a good start. He was battling side by side there with Dennis Johansson as they made the way in towards turn number 3. Further back, still plenty of the 2-3 wides that start off on that start-finish straight. Johansson tucked in behind him as they then made the way up the hill. And well, it's a good run from Kelly, making his way in towards turn number 4. But this is where the drama's about to happen. As your top 4 there settled down, then Kelly made his way in, tucking in behind. Onto the brakes he went. Oh! And it was Dennis Johansson in the end who made contact to the rear of Kelly. So Kelly was touched there by Dennis Johansson. And Johansson in the end helping Kelly on his adventure adventure, an innocent touch perhaps, but a very fatal one to his race, no doubt about it, as we then had what was a bit of drama towards the end of the lap. This was a Joshua Harley in the number 57 as he made his way through turn 8 in towards 9. And going through 9, the car sliding loose, a bit of water on the tyres, and into the end, into the barrier, and bouncing along it, and thankfully not coming back on the circuit. But for Joshua Harley, that's going to be a very frustrating moment to deal with. We then had this for Ryan Chinoweth coming in towards the final corner in the opening lap. He went very sideways in towards the corner, and I suspect it was because of a little bit of water and also cold tyres. He went even more sideways on the exit of the corner. And for Chinoweth there, easy mistake to make, and Frankie D doing the same right behind him. As we then had this for Pedro Maramon Cladera on lap number 2. This was coming over the rise, and he was battling at the time with, I think that was Nathan Wade he was fighting with. They went 2 wide down to 4, and in the end that sent Cladera around, and Wade meanwhile kept things together. Or did he run a little bit wide? And in the end the answer is he held it together there. In fact, that was not Nathan Wade he was fighting with, that was one of the other drivers instead, I do believe. And well, apologies to Nathan Wade for that one, case of mistaken identity. But back to live racing we go. And as we come back to it, well, we've just cleared the opening 5 minutes of racing. We've still got plenty more to come. As, oh, that's a big battle brewing here. It's Dennis Johansson right now, where he's lost the top 3. And in fact, he's up in the full place. So he's fighting hard with Miguel Crisena and also Christian Perez. The 2 Spaniards now getting very firm with each other. And Jeff Randall as well trying to get involved in this as they create the long snake train here coming up towards turn number 9. Randall thinking to himself right now, okay, how exactly do I get ahead of this situation? Because the top 3 have absolutely run away and split off into the distance. Well, the answer is he's got to get to the front of this field and then try and find somebody who wants to work with him. I think they all have the same aspiration here, to get to the front of the field and then work together with somebody, but nobody wants to give way to the other at the moment. That's the key thing. See how this is really bringing all the field back together, because that's your second pack. That is 4th all the way through to 12. And then we have Chris Wayne here, who's battling with Ryan Chinoweth. They're at the front of the pack, which is 14th all the way back to 19th place. And you have another pack of cars behind, which is Schubert and Kelly, 21st, 22nd, all the way back to Elliott in 24th. David Elliott, of course, starts at the very back of the field in 29th, with no valid lap set in qualifying, or at least the 3-lap average being validated. Up through turns 1 and 2 they go right now. All the packs staying together nicely. Unfortunately, we have lost Joshua Harley from this race due to his incident on the open lap. Car is being repaired. In fact, he's just leaving the pit lane now. So Harley is making his way back out potentially shortly. But it's definitely going to be a race where he's multiple laps down. As hold up a second. And Simon Williams just had a trip to the gravel coming through 3 into 4 as he makes way down 2 wide here, battling with Dave Dawson. And in the end, well, it's going to be Dawson up the inside there, defending the position from Simon Williams, who tries to come back at him. And in the end, well, your number 71 driver losing out as they come around the quarters right now. And for Wareham, this race is going from good to bad to backwards to a degree. But I'm sure he'll get his head down here and look to try and push on. But back to your top 3, and we can see here right now all 3 drivers working together, Miles, Otuga and Byfeldt. And well, Adam Miles talked about, of course, last time out at Belle Isle Park, the fact that really, for the most part of the race, there were Daniel Otuga and also Tim Hendrickson, until Hendrickson's early demise in the sprint race. It was all about swapping back and forth, just working together and building up the gap to the rest of the field. It will be in the closing 5 minutes, if not the closing 3 minutes, where we will start to see the elbows out appear, where these drivers will suddenly all want to assert themselves in a particular position in order to be able to take the win on that final lap. And one of the big questions you may have is, do you actually want to be the leading car here going on to the final lap, given the propensity for these machines for slipstream, but also the fact we have got plenty of long stretches here, and that's going to only open up the doors even more. And I get the gut feeling will be you still do want to be leading, but you've got to be ready to defend into turns 1 and 2, or you want to be leading coming out of turn 2, and in the rest of the lap you have got slightly shorter straights with which you can perhaps manage the effects of the slipstream off the back of your car to your competitors behind. But nobody really wants to be the leader onto a lap until they get to turns 1 and 2, just for the simple reason, after that it's much easier to defend. About this long pack of cars right now, well, they're all fighting for the right to be the first driver off the podium, and Dennis Johansson is the man who holds that right now. But I wonder whether it will be Crisena or Perez. We're thinking, how do we exactly get ahead of him? But we do it in a way that we don't lose any time. As you just briefly saw Otuga there taking a look to the inside into 10 versus Miles in that lead battle. I suspect that's more sighting and also to bleed some air and overspeed with it. As these drivers will cover through. It's a good run there from what we could say now. And meanwhile, it's going to be Perez just behind him, getting close. They're going to go 3 wide here as they make their way down the start-finish straight. And all through the tree line, we watch them as they come down towards that braking zone in the middle. That's going to be Miguel Crisena making the move. Meanwhile, Johansson on the left. It's going to be Perez on the right. Dennis Johansson comes back down to braking. Perez backs out entirely. And Jeff Randall now squeezes up the inside. It's a run wide there. And as Crisena goes wide, he just about keeps it on the road. And well, my goodness there, even through through the standing water. That was risky, but he was able to make sure he didn't go off the circuit into the grass. That's a very damp patch of grass out there, and once you touch it, you are not coming back. But as they head through turn number 3 towards 4, it's 2 by 2 now as they head on down. And well, with the rain, you would imagine that we're heading towards biblical conditions. Not quite, and therefore this is not Noah's Ark. This is the Skippy Ark as they come down in towards the braking zone. As that's very close there between Gareth Jr. and Gordon van den Bergen. Both drivers here trying to battle each other on the brakes, whilst also watching what's going on in front. As there's some more rain. The rain comes back over, and it's going to be intermittent showers of rain every so often across this first race by looks of things, depend on exactly where the clouds sit over the track. And well, I wonder if that's going to be the feeble all the way through here, and a little sprinkling of water is already going to serve to cause our drivers here to have to keep their wits about them even more, because suddenly where they're finding all the grip and the rubber, it will gradually be washed away if we get these small downpours of rain. And it's very light, it will just help rub off some of that grip from the surface, and suddenly what might have been the optimum line only moments ago now becomes a suboptimal line. Down the straight they go, in towards the second half of the race, most certainly, with 9 minutes left on the clock. And right now, Kusena versus Johansson. Johansson still defending the inside on the left of your picture. Kusena on the outside there on the right, and Randon Perez then fight each other. Steff Hermann as well. He started down in 9th place, the championship leader. He's playing a very passive game here as he looks at the inside of Christian Perez. And Perez there finds himself now having to battle on the inside versus Hermann in towards turn number 3. Randolph getting very eager to find a way past Johansson. He's looking at it, and Hermann just backs off there as they roll their way through. We right aboard the cockpit of your number 25 driver. He builds up the pace here. We does have Gordon van den Bergen only a tenth behind him as they come down into 4 and 5. But everyone right now, we're really playing the smart, patient game here. A lot of switching back and forth, but it definitely feels as though everyone right now in this very long group of cars is really trying to make sure they're at the very front of it wherever possible. Whereas your top 3, they are playing the game of to me to you. This group, meanwhile, it does seem very much, okay, I'll give you the place, but it comes to the condition I'm going to come back for it very soon. If not, I'm going to hold on to it right now. And as we continue to ride aboard with our German driver, making his way down towards turn number 10. Well, you can see there Johansson taking a quick peek to the inside there versus Kusena. Is he going to be able to make the move? The answer is no. They all stay nose to tail for now. But definitely they are all eyed each other up here. As back to the front, we see another swap. Miles now back ahead of Otuga here with 7.5 minutes left on the clock. And Marcus Byfeldt just watching on. Fastest lap race is Marcus Byfeldt. It's a 20.549. That'll be worth some bonus points if he's able to hold on to it. But here we go, Jeff Randall looking around the outside, a bit of touching there of the wheels, and well, Casado was never going to give it to Randall, and in the end here comes Christian Perez back up the inside of the old Git Racing team driver. Randall right now, understandably, I could imagine enjoyed it out there. He is streaming his on board right now on the old Git Racing team Twitch channel if you want to have that on side by side with this broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, because he's absolutely loving it there as he makes his way through, coming down in towards turn number 4. Well, right now Randall does get back ahead of Perez. Perez in all sorts out of line, but Hermann now looking around the outside to the inside here. So Steff Hermann here wants to come alive, dives in. It's a lovely move there from Hermann, but in return now here comes Perez back to the inside of him in towards turn number 6. 2 while they make the way all the way through, and in the end Steff Hermann on that outside line, tuck it in, and well, Steff Hermann started to bear his fangs just that little bit more. But there's been some changes further down. Unfortunately, we have had a big incident for Frankie D, and was relegated outside of the top 20, and where it was earlier on this lap, and what exactly happened to him, here's the replay. This is Frankie D making his way down the start finish straight there, side by side with Ronnie Schubert, the car we confused for Nathan Wade earlier on. And here it was on the inside, went onto the brakes, a small prang there with Schubert, sent him around. Schubert in the end being collected again, and thankfully there, Tom Payne not being caught in that, otherwise it would have been a traffic jam at turn number 1. But unfortunately for Frankie D, I get the feeling Schubert didn't mean to make contact, but unfortunately contact was made, and it sent D backwards in the race. We're back to your live race to become, and in good time as well, because we can see here more fighting going on. Jeff Randall now drops down the order. He drops down to 10th place as they make the way through turns 1 and 2. I think on the outside he's been caught out quite significantly as it's getting feisty, even more so here, and that's going to be a word we're going to use time and time again. A bit more rain coming down here, but everyone right now keeping it very well together as we see a bit of a slide loose there from Rody van der Meijden through 3. Definitely does love going sideways in the exit of that corner more than anybody else. Chinoev and also Nathan Wade on the back of this. We do have right now, to put you in perspective, ladies and gentlemen, from full through to 15th place, we do have the grand total of 12 cars separated by a grand total of what is only 3.5 seconds. That's how close they are as Gareth Jr. here fights with Randall, trying to sweep round the outside to the inside now as he comes out of 8 into 9. That's going to work out for the Swede very nicely as Randall now has got to try and get the pace back versus him in towards turn number 10. And on that outside line, that momentum is going to be curbed because here comes Remco Placia. The Dutchman looking up the inside here, going all in for Raging Turtle Racing. And indeed, it's been some time since we've seen that the Raging Turtles make the way inside the top 10, but he's going to try for it. Is he going to be able to do it? As me on the other side here comes Titus de Jong. He switches to the outside. They want to pincer Randall where they can, but Randall knows what's going on. He puts the car in the middle of the road and makes sure that they're not going to be able to find a way through. And in the end, they both back off the Raging Turtle cars, knowing that Randall is wise to their tricks. Meanwhile, 2 wide coming out of turns 1 and 2. That is going to be Hermann and Kusena. As we can see, Johansson right now under pressure. Steff Hermann has got ahead there of the Spaniard. He's going to go up the inside of the Dane as well. And Steff Hermann right now, he leaves it late, but he's going to make it work. And Steff Hermann suddenly comes through from what was 7th place at the start of the lap all the way through to 4th. Now, if Hermann can hold on to this at this point, this is going to be a big haul of points he's going to bring in. But Johansson immediately side by side as they drift the wind down. It's getting slippery out there, but the pace is staying. And right now, I can imagine the drivers are driving more aggressively, and that's by design. The idea is that essentially the more aggressive you drive, the more heat you keep in the tyres. And at this point right now, when the rain seems to be coming and going, but it is falling just that little bit more, track temperature is dropping, tyre temperatures at risk of dropping. You've got to keep the heat in the tyres to keep the pace of these cars, because they are reliant on the tyre temperatures, plus also the small front and rear wings they do have. But here comes Johansson now looking back to the inside here versus Herbert, and well, they are keeping us guessing every lap, every step of the way. It's absolutely brilliant battling between them all, but rolling the way on through and down the start finish straight they go. And well, as they do, all these drivers so close together right now, and well, it's going to be a three-way battle here for 4th place coming down towards turn number 1. And Johansson goes the fence to the inside, Hermann in the middle of the road. Meanwhile, Perez around the outside. Perez has got a nose ahead of the pair on his inside. However, into the braking zone, it's all going to change here. It's going to be a squeeze. Is Hermann given the space? He is, as Perez rolls the car out wide intentionally there to allow him to be able to stay in the fight. And meanwhile, coming up behind now, here comes Kusena. He's going to try and get involved as well as it's 3 at the front, 2 behind, and Gordon van den Bergen gets into the mix. The chequered racing driver here, he pokes his way through to 7th place now. As Kusena is falling back, run wide there from what is Perez. Johansson goes around the outside of him, and well, they're so close together. The respect between them is absolutely incredible. Small touch of the grass there from Perez. I don't know how he kept that on, my good lord. As they come down into that braking zone for turn number 5, and Wade comes in quite hot, and in the end does not hit the rear of Gareth Jr. I thought he had there, had Nathan Wade, and well, he's been muscled down this order yet, but the right now, oh goodness me, hold the fort on that one, because rubbing wheels there of Gareth Jr., and somehow, some way, they don't both go around as they make the way back of themselves. We've got 2 more laps to go, because here's your leaders right now as they make the way in towards turn number 10, Miles, Otuga and Byfeldt, and well, we are going to give them a little bit of screen time now, understandably, but I think they're waiting for the big crescendo here, which will be the final lap. So here they go then, on to the penultimate one, lap number 14. It's Otuga this time who moves into lead on the inside. Adam Miles, meanwhile, holds that outside, and here comes Byfeldt looking to make it 3 wide. Minion backs out there, does Marcus, and well, Miles in the end sees that Byfeldt's there, he just stays out. Meanwhile, Perez, he's 8 seconds behind, he's in a 3 wide once again. Perez and 3 wide are going to be 2 synonymous phrases we're going to be saying all day today by the looks of things. But he goes deep on that exit curbing, it's just a little bit slippery out there, and it's not going to offer him any grip in the dry, and in the wet it's going to offer even less grip. But here they come in towards turn number 3, and Christian Perez right now, whether he goes wide or keeps it nice. Oh, there's contact between Perez and Johansson. They touch wheels twice, and as they make the way on through, well, in the end, Perez does hold at the 4th place, but Johansson drops down to the back of this group. I wonder if the suspension damage for Johansson, but we can see here Perez right now coming down in towards turn number 4, and suddenly this whole field groups back up even more so. Right now you could cut the tension with a knife. It is that tight as they come down through the hairpin, and it's going to be Randall, van den Bergen and Kusena all over the back of Perez, with van den Bergen also getting into the mix there, and then Gareth Jr. and Wade complete that top 10 at the moment. But this could shuffle once again as Remco Placia tucks up the inside of Cheetah Web there, and well, the Raging Turtle Racing driver causes the Australian driver to run slightly wide coming out of turn number 9, out of fear of what was coming, but they're all swapping left, right and centre. But back to the front we go, because here we go, it is the final lap, ladies and gentlemen, around 13, and it's going to be Byfeldt, Otuga and Miles. We can see Marcus Byfeldt there. He's going to put himself right in the middle of the road. It's going to be Miles on the outside and Otuga on the inside. 3 into turn 1. And in the end, well, it's going to be the Moses manoeuvre there. And Marcus Byfeldt does make it forward in the end as he brings the speed together. But is he able to hold off Otuga? Has had the better run on the inside coming up towards turn number 3? The answer is yes, he can. Marcus Byfeldt conducts the Moses manoeuvre and now forces the 2 drivers behind him to have to play ball as they make the way over the rise. Onto the cockpit we go of your 3rd place man. Rain is firmly coming on down now. It's light rain, but still, it's significant. second. And into that braking zone, they come for 4 into 5 here. And it's going to be Otuga on the outside every step of the way into 5. Can he get clear of Byfeldt through the apex? Not quite. They touch wheels. And now as they come down in towards turn number 6, where it's going to be Somerset all the way up through here. Is it going to be too wide every step of the way? It may just be. There's Otuga, gets the inside of turn 7 and 8. Now around the outside, he's got the momentum. Someone's miles at this point. Byfeldt is slightly offline. And as they make the way through the right-hander of turn number 9, well, Miles right now, he's been shuffled down to 3rd place. So I don't know how he's going to get back into lead if at all at this point. Because Otuga right now has got Byfeldt as a bit of cover here as they come in towards the final bend. And will Daniel Otuga holding on. And as he makes his way out the final corner, has he got enough of a run into the finish line? It's a short run. It's going to be a sprint. It's going to be a charge. But for Daniel Otuga, it is going to be enough. Otuga wins round number 13 of the championship by only 700ths over Marcus Byfeldt. Adam Miles will complete your top 3. Steff Hermann, meanwhile, your championship leader, will lead the rest of the field home in 4th place. Head of Christian Perez, Gordon van den Bergen, Jeff Randall, Miguel Casina, Christopher Garris Jr., and it'll be Nathan Wade coming home in 10th place. Then we'll have Remco Pleiser in 11th ahead of Dennis Johansson, with Titus de Jong, Jesus Cabal, and Brian Kelly, who recovers all the way to 15th place, and with that recovery will be your pole sitter for round 14. What an effort from him after his open lap contact with Dennis Johansson. He's made the recovery drive worth it. Dave Dolson takes home 16th ahead of Simon Wareham, Chris Wayne, Tom Payne, and Roddy van der Meijden, who completes your top 20. David Elliott in the end has to settle for 21st, just ahead of Roddy Schubert, and then it will be Frankie D, who finishes 23rd ahead of Marcel de Hint, with Noel, Richie Robertson, Pedro Manuel Caldera, and Joshua Harley completing all your finishes in this race as we wait for Harley to come through a lap down. But to be fair to him, he's not a lap down. In fact, he is on the lead lap still, so we'll correct ourselves right there. But he's not given up, and that's absolutely brilliant to see. Harley delivering, much like everybody else out there, because it's always good to see the finish line, no matter how your race has gone. Unfortunately, we did, on the final lap, lose Ryan Chenoweth. We won't be able to get a replay of that, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, but due to time limitations. But it does seem as though it's gone wrong for him on the final lap, and I wonder whether there's some contact in that pack. Unfortunately, we couldn't cover both the fight for 4th through to 18th and the lead battle, but understandably, we did have to cover the lead right at the end. But what we can now do is, whilst we're back into the warm-up phase and the rain is definitely building, we can now take a look at the race results subject to any students' inquiries for round number 13 of the championship. And after an absolutely exciting 20-minute sprint here at the Summit Point Raceway for the first of our 2 races here today in what is none other than our 7th race weekend of the calendar, Daniel Otuga taking a victory in the end, and it's a 1-2 for Sweden, because Marcus Byfeldt joined in there just behind by 7 hundredths and 3,000ths. Adam Miles, meanwhile, took 3rd in the end, and he'll be a bit gutted in the fact he couldn't quite find his way back to the front of the trio right at the end. But to be fair to Daniel Otuga and Marcus Byfeldt, they all put on a brilliant show, and Byfeldt went for the Moses manoeuvre. He thought he'd got it done, but Daniel Otuga was brave to go around the outside of turn 5 to get the inside of turn number 6, and Miles in the end had to wait for the 2 Swedish drivers to settle things down before he could mount his charge, but it wasn't enough time. Then it was a further 9 seconds back almost to Steff Hermann, who led the rest of the field on home. Indeed, you could say that's a bit of a metaphor for his championship campaign so far for the German driver, head of Christian Perez, who rounded off the top 5 there on his return to the grid today. What a drive from him, and at one point we thought he was going to finish 4th, but 5th is what he's had to settle for, ahead of Gordon van den Bergen, with the second racing driver in the end muscling his way up through the order gradually over the race distance. And it was Jeff Randall in 7th place there for the Old Git Racing team, head of Miguel Crisena, who finished in 8th despite spending most of the race inside the top 5. Christopher Garris Jr. and Nathan Wade round off the top 10, and a good observation there from George Matzik in the YouTube chat saying, did Wade drop it? We believe he did slip down the order at one point, and it was because of a run wide for either him or another driver coming out of turn number 3 on one of the early laps. I believe it was on lap number 3, and essentially several drivers had to take evasive action for each other to avoid making the instant worse. Nobody actually had a spin or anything to that description, but it was the fact that essentially several cars had to take evasive action for one another to make sure an incident didn't happen, and Wade did drop down to around 16th place, and he recovered to that 10th place finish. Remco Pleiser took the best of rest spot in 11th there for Agent Turtle Racing. Came on strong towards the end, but unfortunately didn't time his moves right. And Dennis Johansson, well, he was sent all the way back down to 12th place after what was significant contact with one of his rivals. And the priority in the end, unfortunately, come off the worst in his battle between himself and I believe it was Christian Perez. Still from Johansson, it was then Titus de Jong in 13th place, Raging Turtle Racing, and 4 tenths behind. We then had Jesus Cabal, with the Spaniard being followed up by the American of Brian Kelly, who did well to recover from the very back of the field after his open lap altercation with Johansson to finish 15th and would take the reverse grid pole position for race number 2. Dave Dowson, Simon Wareham, Chris Wayne, Tom Payne, and Roddy van der Meyden completed your top 20. And outside that top 20, we then did see David Elliott ahead of Ronnie Schubert, with Frankie D in at 23rd place after his altercation with the gravel trap on turn number 10 on lap number 1. Cost him dear, but he did get back on the road, as did Marcel de Hint. Noel Richie Robertson finished 25th, the South African driver. He was 7 seconds ahead of Pedro Maron Cladera. Now we did have Joshua Harley, the last lead lap finisher there, in 27th after a miserable opening lap for the Briton. He was ahead of Ryan Chinoweth, who had to retire from the race on the final lap. That's why he's classified as a lap down. We didn't quite see what happened to him, unfortunately, but we believe it may have been an instant in that pack from 4th through to 18th, whereby he was collected by a car coming out of the hairpin sequence, and then Martin van Eckelen, sadly, a non-starter, and hopefully we will see him on the grid for race number 2, because if not, we'll be absolutely gutted for the Dutchman, who definitely has been one of the big stars in the mid-pack so far this season. But that was race number 1, ladies and gentlemen, and well, with some rain falling, and the rain has gone away again, and there it is again. Indeed, it does seem as though whichever camera we look at here, there's going to be rain or no rain. What this is definitely doing is it is going to moisten up the track surface, and well, the pace of the racing is going to slip down, and that's going to lead to a lot of interesting questions with regards to our feature, because we have heard, I do believe there is the potential to no-stop this race. Now, let's be 100% transparent about this. The organisers have already pointed out to our drivers before they have gone into the racing today, if they think they can no-stop round number 14, the feature race, they are not permitted to. They have to come into the pit and do what is considered to be a stop and go. Now, the idea is you essentially pull into the pit, pull into your pit slot, and as soon as you park the car up, as soon as the car goes to 0 miles an hour, it is deemed parked or stopped, you can then go. So it might be a race to see who's the quickest at getting into the pit lane and just simply stopping the car and getting it going again, if they think they can no-stop this. And with more rain coming, that is definitely going to lean this race more towards a potential no-stop there. Oh, goodness me, as that was almost 2 drivers coming together. That was Daniel Otuga and Miguel Casina coming together almost. But keep in mind, when we do have a wet track surface, it lowers the pace, it lowers the amount of fuel being used, and therefore it does invite the no-stop strategy even more, which we're not allowing our drivers to do. There must be a stop and go, but without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we stopped the racing only moments ago, but now we are go and green flag for it again. It's time to head to the grid for round number 14. And as our drivers make the way onto the grid, I've just had a quick sip of water there, because otherwise I think I'm going to be losing my voice tonight. And Brian Kelly lines up as your top 15 inverted pole sitter for our final race of the day. He is joined on the front row by Jesus Cabal, with Titus de Jong and Dennis Johansson on row number 2. Row 3, we have Remco Plaisir and Nathan Wade, with Christopher Gerris Jr. and Miguel Casina making up your 4th row. Completing that top 10, it's going to be Jeff Randall and Gordon van den Bergen. And then on row number 6, best of the rest, it's going to be a Christian Perez ahead of Steff Hermann, with Adam Miles and Marcus Byfeldt on row 7, and your winner from race number 1, none other than Daniel Otuga, starts in 15th place. He is joined on the 8th row of the grid by Dave Dawson, ahead of Simon Wareham and Chris Wayne, and your top 20 is completed by Tom Payne and Roddy van der Meyden. And outside the top 20, we have David Elliott and Ronnie Schubert on row number 11, ahead of Frankie D and Marcel de Hint. Let's go to Noel Richie Robertson and Pedro Maron Cladera. Final 4 row of the grid is going to be Joshua Harley and Ryan Chinoweth, and then Martin van Eckelen will complete that starting order. But, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of starting orders, it's time for us to get started. The revs are about to rise, and with the lights going on, it's going to be 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go. Here's the rain falls at Summit Point Raceway for race number 2 here. And as they make the way down, well, we've had one dry start for the pit lane in the form of Remco Plaisir, a technical issue with the car. And we have lost Ronnie Schubert and also Ryan Chinoweth from the grid. But still, we have had the best part of 26 starters in this race. They all covered down. The spray is significant. There's standing water as well. And that's not going to make this easy for anybody now. So they're going to have to really try and temper out the grip levels here. And I won't be surprised if we see a few cars run wide as they all make the way through. All car off the road there. That is several cars off the road, I believe. That is going to be Marcel de Hint, also Noel Richie Robinson and Dave Dowson all being caught up. I think they've all now got themselves back together. But looking to the front of the field, car running wide. That's going to be Dennis Johansson. Johansson's out onto the gravel there. A couple other cars have got out wide as well. They're all washing out here, and nobody right now knows exactly where the grip is. But Brian Kelly does, and Kelly right now, well, he's got a 1 second gap initially at least, but as they all make their way down towards the hairpin, he runs very deep there, and well, even wider that is going to be, I believe that's Kusena going out wide, and also Christian Perez follows him off the road, so they're going to come down together with the Spaniards. They'll fall down the order. Everyone right now trying to figure out exactly where the optimum line is. The cold tyres, these all-purpose tyres, this is not proven easy by any stretch of the imagination. But we're on the way onwards. Well, meanwhile, we'll look to Steff Hermann, as he's got Marcus Byfeldt right behind him. Hold up, where's Adam Miles? Miles off into the grass. He's gone wide there at turn number 8 into 9. Now, has he been pushed off the road? Has he just found his way of his own volition? 100% certain, but that's a shock there. The man who you'd expect to be able to come up with a plan very quickly in these conditions, it's all gone absolutely the wrong way. But I suspect there's a bit of a story to that, and we'll get the story on that when we can. As meanwhile, he makes his way back up to speed. Muscle to Hint and Renko Pleiser go side by side, and Renko Pleiser, who started from the pit lane, he's now up into 23rd place. Oh my good lord, there's even more that's gone wrong. That's Daniel Johansson coming out of the final corner. He's perched on the grass. The car's waiting to get turned. If he can get it off the grass, can he even get it restarted? Not 100% certain, but we are certain of is that we've had Brian Kelly go wide at turn number 1, and Nathan Wade now takes the lead of the race. They're all falling off the circuit right now. These conditions are proving treacherous for everybody, and I think everyone's just been blindsided by the fact that we had only small patches of standing water for what was the end of practice and qualifying. Then race number 1, the rain came midway through the race, but it was intermittent and didn't really settle. And in the warm-up period into this race, we have had a lot of rain come down, and as a result now, more rain falling, this circuit has completely gone away from the grip levels earlier on, and I think everyone's still driving thinking there's grip out there when there's not. So they're having to be inventive, they're having to find where the grip is, and that's why I see so many drivers slide off the order, even if they are some of our higher rated drivers here in terms of where they stand in the current championship standings and what we've seen earlier in this season. So this could be a round right now where some drivers who have not perhaps had the biggest performances of the season, they suddenly find this is their time to shine. And well, we do have some rainmeisters out here, no doubt about it. You see it any series, to be fair, but suddenly a change of conditions could bring out the very best of the driver who normally struggles in the dry. But as we look to Jesus Cabal, well, right now having started in second place, he's battling with Jeff Randall. Randall's up the inside of him, and Randall still chasing his first win of the season. Of course, he's only had 2 podiums this season. They were both at Alton Park in 2 incredible races, which is absolutely ecstatic about. We've yet to see a win from him. Could this be the day where he finally picks up that first win of the season? Well, there's a long way to go to find out as they make their way down that start-finish straight. And Gareth Jr. and Nathan Wade right now, they have swapped places at the forefront of your camera as the rest of the field goes 2 by 2 further behind. But making their way into the braking zone, Wade gets back ahead of Gareth Jr. there, up the inside, but that inside line, it's slippery, and it's going to be Kamal. He slips off the road. Oh, no! And he comes back on, he makes contact with Miguel Caseda. Caseda goes off, he's going to go rejoin. David Elliott has to park up, and we won't be too happy with the way the Spaniards rejoin there, but Caseda wanted to go racing, and then they've got to be careful of those rejoins, understandably. And well, you can tell that all the drivers are very used to having to deal with situations like this where cars are rejoining, so they're all immediately on the brakes and they're not adding to the scene of the incident. But goodness me, it did go wrong there. And well, right now as they make the way onwards, there's a big slide loose there. That is going to be, I believe, none other than what was Gordon van den Bergen slipping off the road, and in the end he gets himself back together with Simon Wareham and Remco Pleiser for company. In fact, that was Tom Payne there who had the slide. But right now Joshua Harley making his way down in towards turn number 5. The sun comes back out now, and indeed I can tell you what, the weather has been incredibly temperamental here at Summit Point. But right now David Elliott, well, his race is going to be one of temperance here as he slides through turns 6 and 7, and the Irishman right now trying to hold off Titus de Jong, who's looking inside to outside, he's looking everywhere on the road, and David Elliott right now holding it together just about as he's getting de Jong and Quesada to fight each other, and there's going to be Quesada around again. And with Miguel Quesada, this race is going from good to bad to what is absolutely nightmare in a very short period of time as he brings himself back on the road, but not without some damage on the car, and I suspect a degree of frustration. But back to the front of the field we go as 5 minutes is complete. We've still got another 25 minutes to go, and they're already going 3 wide down towards turn number 1. Please, gents, keep it clean. I promise you, and the fact that right now there's still plenty of racing to go. Albeit I don't think they got the memo. But as they make their way through turn number 1, Randall tries to go around the outside and complete the move. He does, but not without completely drifting sideways there. And that was more Tokyo Drift than Skip Barber, as he makes his way towards turn number 3 right now for Jeff Randall, where he wants this lead. I think he feels though he can make the break here, ladies and gents. Otuga, look at the confidence, and that's misplaced confidence there as he runs out of free, runs wide. Can he get it back to him? No, he can't. There's contact there, and that's going to send himself and Walsh Jr. to the tyre barrier. And for Jeff Randall, it all suddenly came together, and they all suddenly slipped out of his hands as quickly as that. And well, that car's going to be damaged, and Walsh Jr. unfortunately has got a meatball flag for the damage that he's picked up. Well, you can see they're limping along right now. I think Randall may have to come in as well for some quick repair work. But with the no stop here as well, or the fact it's a stop and go today rather than an actual proper fuel pit stop potentially, that may actually mean that anyone who picks up damage here, they don't actually lose as much time as they would at other circuits if they can get into the pit lane. But right now you can see there the car of Walsh Jr. struggling its way around, and I think it's leaking some fluids out the side of it as well. But as they make the way on through, well, we come back to Daniel Otuga as he keeps Steff Hermann at bay by going up the inside of the championship leader. And Otuga, your race 1 winner right now, where he's trying to make it 2 from 2 here. But the problem is, he's got a pack in front of him right now of 2 other cars on the form of Byfeldt and Wade. Well, I think everyone is very eager here to make a very strong impression, but nobody seems to be able to tame their car for the conditions. And we do say hello there to race driver 777. And well, my good lord, has it been an exciting opening 7 minutes. I don't think it's over yet, ladies and gentlemen. The rain has stopped for now. The circuit started to dry up a little bit, but again, let's emphasize a little bit there. The water is not just going to disappear in with some sunlight and all these cars going on around. It will take some time. And as we do see Frankie D looking for a move up the inside of both Tom Payne and also Renko Plycer. Well, he's going to get one of them, and Plycer goes a little bit deep there, and D staying nice and close as we ride aboard with your number 12 driver. Now making his way along at this point, building up the speed and coming in towards the left-hander of turn number 3. As he does so here, and right now your number 12 driver, you can see, look how they're all struggling. There's just no grip on that tarmac. They all want to come through turn number 3 with a lot of speed, but it's those who actually approach that left-hander with a lot less momentum in the car. They're able to keep a much better line, but fighting at the steering wheel is our American driver as we continue to ride on board with him. You can see all the water sliding down there and pooling at the apex of turn number 5, which is to be expected. And we're on the way through turn 6 into 7 here. Well, right now, Frankie D literally trying to wrestle this car. It's more rallycross at this point than road racing, but that's the attitude he's had to take in order to make sure this lightweight Skippy machine is able to stay pointed. As who's that off the road on the left? That, I believe, is the car of Titus de Jong, who's been involved in the instant. So de Jong's falling down the order, and well, it's gone wrong for him. And meanwhile, D and company are all going to gain places. But onwards they go, and as they do, well, meanwhile, Plycer here battling side by side with Van den Bergen. One Raging Turtle Racing Machine is still hanging on, but Van den Bergen wants to place back right now. They've been shuffled around in this order. We'll get a replay of some of the big moments in the opening 10 minutes of the racing shortly. But meanwhile, from these drivers, they power their way towards turn number 1. It's 3 wide at 1 right now, and we're on the outside. That is Daniel Otuga having to keep what is 3 wheels on the tarmac and not the rear left. I don't know how he was able to avoid the wheel spin there, but he's going to come back here. There's going to be Byfeldt in the middle of the road, and on the outside it's going to be Nathan Wade. And Marcus Byfeldt once again proves that he is Moses. He goes between the 2 cars. He loves doing that. He loves to part the seas of Skippies, and as he makes his way down, I'm not trying to make this rhyme, I swear, ladies and gents, but otherwise it would be a bit of a crime, but still in good time as they come down in towards the next braking zone. Marcus Byfeldt right now, well, I can tell you one thing, if he doesn't win either of the races today, he has given us plenty of entertainment, and he might just be the man who can walk on water here, although unfortunately I would say that Talkie T there, who we say hello to in the YouTube chat, would have something to say about that. He's missed this race unfortunately, and well, looking so fast in the rain as well, and I do believe that is none other than Neil Gardner who is Talkie T there, although I'm not 100% I found the username, so I do apologise, sir, if I've got the wrong person, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong there. Always learning every day, but as it's another day in the office for these drivers, meanwhile, they're definitely learning to these conditions as they go. Brian Kelly here side by side, a weird open way coming into that braking zone, as into the pits comes Steff Hermann. So Hermann comes on in here, he decides to go nice and early for this pit stop, and again, we do believe that this is practically going to be a stop and go style pit stop rather than a actual fuel stop here, depending on how much fuel they are trying to plan to save. But we'll see what's to be as it's 2 by 2 here. And Hermann pitting early. There might be some method in the madness of what he's doing. I think he doesn't want to fight with these guys. He wants to clear them as quickly as he can. Now, Hermann has been serviced. It's been a very quick pit stop for Steff Hermann. Where's it going to put him? As we do see Otuga get ahead of Byfeldt. And now that might not be good news for Steff Hermann. He has come out in 16th and he is right at the back of a long line of cars. Well, he'll have the tow. That's the upshot of this. He's now got to try and work his way through a pack of cars that might start fighting. If any of them fight or slide around, suddenly for a number 25 driver, he could lose a lot more time than he could gain in all this. So therefore, he's really got to have the mentality, he's got to have the fortitude now to pick his way past them as quickly as he possibly can and hope that they might start to defect their way to the pit lane as well. But ladies and gentlemen, with that, we're going to take a look back in time at some of the big moments in the opening few laps of the race, and we'll begin with what happened to Jesus Cabal. So this was on lap number 1 as they made their way down. Cabal was the second car in this picture at the front. On the right, found the standing water on the outside, went a bit deep, and in the end understeered a bit more, and eventually came back on there as several other drivers went a bit wide, including none other than Tom Payne, albeit went a bit wrong further down the order, I do believe, for Payne as he made his way in towards that braking zone. And well, here was Payne coming on through. And as he did so, well, into the corner, contact there with Chris Wayne, I do believe. That sent him sideways, and in the end, he managed to wrestle the car back together as Marcel de Hint was turned there as well. Now, who was he in contact with, I wonder? Not 100% certain, but I think that was Noel Ritchie Robinson he found contact with, and they all came apart. Meanwhile, we then had this for Christian Perez. And this was Perez making his way out towards turn number 3. And this was definitely a moment of some very big drama as he made his way into that left hand with the rain falling. And well, carried all the speed. And several cars ran wide, including Christian Perez. And well, they all had to rejoin their Dennis Johansson. Meanwhile, already found his way out onto the gravel. And Roddy van der Maiden as well sent to the tree line practically. This was the on-board from Dennis Johansson in all that madness. So he had a bit of spray in front in there from another car. Made his way into the braking zone for the left-hander. As he did so, well, chasing hard, it just carried a bit too much speed, and the standing water washed the car out, and that's what saw him go almost all the way round. But thankfully, able to get pointed back on the straight and narrow. Otherwise, that could have been in absolute tears. We then had this for Brian Kelly on lap number 2. This was Kelly, of course, in the lead of the race, trying to open up a bit of a gap. And as he made his way into the braking zone for turn number 1, on that outside line, which called out none other than Jesus Cabal in the opening lap, it called him out and sent him all the way out, and in the end had to sliver his way back onto the road, and eventually found his way back on. We then had this for Dennis Johansson at the end of what was lap number 2, or did we? In fact, we did. This was a quick look back at what happened to Dennis Johansson, I do believe. In fact, was it a bit wrong for Dennis Johansson a bit later? There he was. In fact, he was parked up, so Johansson had gone round. We don't know what's actually caused that, ladies and gentlemen. That's the only replay footage we've got of Dennis Johansson parked up there, and was surprised, definitely it was. But this also happened on lap number 2. This is Frankie D making his way down into turn number 5. He made his way into the brakes here. What exactly happened to him? And the answer is the car just started to understeer away from him, and in the end he almost went off, but thankfully was able to get it together thereabouts. Now this for David Elliott on lap number 3. And this was Elliott at turn number 1. I think there's going to be a theme here of turn number 1 and drivers' races coming undone. Went into the brakes there, side-by-side battle just in front between the 59 and the 12, and we'll car off the road. That was Jesus Cabal, and that was the instant we saw with Jesus Cabal going off the road and several other cars as well, and well, David Elliott just down to park up in the nick of time. But we can't dwell on that one for too much longer, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to head back to your live racing now, and we've got plenty more to come here as we now make our way towards what will be the 14th minute of the race distance. And still, the rain is falling in some parts of the circuit, it's not falling in others, but it seems like a lot of our drivers now have started to calm things down. We will bring up on the time and tell the number of pit stops each driver has served, so that way you've got an idea of who's pitted and who's not. Just keep in mind there is an outline in the form of Remco Plaisir, who did start from the pit lane, so he does have one stop to his name already. We will see him coming for what will be, quote-unquote, a second stop. That will actually be his required pit stop. So he's the only one there where it says one stop, you actually need to deduct one pit stop off him as we understand it. But Jesus Cabal has been into the pit lane quite recently. Pedro Moncadera has also been on in. Roddy van der Maiden, unfortunately, has retired from this race. So has Dennis Johansson for their early exploits, or what we should say, early misery in the race. But meanwhile, we'll come back to Jeff Randall, the man who tried to take lead of the race early on, but unfortunately it slipped away from him coming at turn number 3. That big sideways moment. And Christian Perez there with him right now. And Perez also trying to recover into this one. Both drivers here, both had lofty aspirations at the start of the race, but right now they've been brought back down to earth as Nathan Wade sets the fastest lap, and then Adam Miles decides to absolutely pierce the sky over 30.487. And in fact, 467 there, and it is Miles in the number 85 you see at the bottom of your picture, and he is absolutely flying right now. So Adam Miles, who started in 13th place, well, he may have had a slow start to this one, but he's been able to avoid most of the drama, and as a result now, he is going on a mission to try and catch up here, as it does seem as though the conditions have settled down just a little bit. But Jeff Randall still on the back of Perez. There's a bit more rain, but the rain seems to be more sporadic than it has been. And Marcus Byfeldt at the front of the field right now, continue to lead them all round here. And are we starting to enter into the territory where it's more about fuel saving and the constant switchback? Or are we going to see some more battles? Because we're at the halfway point, and well, it's definitely been a race so far where it's all been about trying to get to the front and break away. But I wonder now, with everyone starting to adapt to the conditions, whether it's going to change. Well, in fact, there's your answer. No, it's not, because that's going to be Daniel Otuga up the inside in towards turn 7. And immediately, Byfeldt trying to come back at him, going through 8 into 9. Marcus Byfeldt here, I think, just causing himself to lose the place there by washing out wide at turn number 6. Brian Kelly and Nathan Wade on the back of them. Adam Miles also encroaching quickly. And then Christian Perez a further 2 seconds back ahead of Jeff Randall. They want to get into this fight if they can. So I think there, Randall. In fact, Randall decides, you know what, I'm done with this. I'll come into the pit lane. I don't want to be in this pack anymore, and his target is to beat none other than Steff Hermann. But here is Hermann making his way in towards turn number 10. I don't think Randall's going to clear your number 25 driver. I think he's going to come out behind him, but we will see as Frankie D ducks into the pit lane. Titus de Jong stays out. Randall making his way down. There's Gordon van den Bergen. Here's Jeff Randall parked up, and car's still stationary at the moment. He's finally been serviced, and well, as Steff Hermann's already cleared him, there goes Hermann. So who's Randall going to come out amongst? Frankie D's just been serviced as well. Jesus Cabal has pitted, and here comes Cabal down the start for the straight. I think Randall's going to come out ahead of the Spaniard. He does. There you go. In a single pitch, that explains it. So Randall is currently the second highest of those who have pitted, and then we do have Jesus Cabal 3.7 seconds back. But meanwhile, in the rear of the picture, that's Chris Wayne, Randall's teammate, enjoying a 2x2 as they get ready to go into turns 1 and 2. He's home wrinkle placed behind, but here comes Miguel Casena up the inside of 1. Can he get both of them into turn 1? The answer is no, as unfortunately David Elliott has had to come into the pit lane due to damage on the car that he must get repaired, hence the meatball flag. But we can see there Wayne right now holding back the Spaniard, and well, all these drivers have pitted, excluding Placia, who still needs to take his mandatory pit stop. So therefore, Placia is a bit of an anomaly in this group, but he's not going to waste the opportunity here to stay in the draft of the cars in front and also try and pick up some race time as well as some fuel saving. But Wayne going defence here as Casena goes around the outside there, and Miguel Casena's got so much confidence and so much pace now that he's adjusted to the conditions. But understandably, I think he'll be kicking himself after this race and saying, why couldn't I adjust it quicker, or why was I not perhaps a little bit more patient with the conditions earlier on? But it's so easy to talk about that in retrospect, but at the time as a driver you want to push as much as possible. As soon as you think you've got some grip out there in these wet conditions, you start to push, and that's where the mistakes are made. But make no mistake right now, well, your top 4 with their fighting coming in towards turn number 1, and every car going slightly deep there. That's going to bring Brian Kelly just that little bit closer, and Perez with him, although Kelly has in fact fallen back off this group over the last lap. He's fallen to what is 1.3 seconds behind, whereas previously he was in the group essentially. So not quite sure what's happened for Kelly. I think he's had a bit of a sideways moment at turn number 10 from what I'm hearing in my ear, and that may have just caused him to lose some momentum. But still, he won't be too upset when he sees that top 3 are definitely squaring off against each other at the moment. But they've also had to pick their way past the car in amongst all this by the looks of things. And well, Daniel Otuga here, well, in fact, they haven't had to pick their way past the car. Let me correct myself there, because that's Adam Miles you see at the back of the group there, and Nathan Wade. But as they roll the way on through, Otuga, Byfeldt, Wade, Miles, Kelly and Perez is your top 6 that you're seeing in the camera shots at the moment. And they still have that question of when are they going to pit. As Otuga continues to lead this group for now at least. Perhaps there's a bit of equilibrium being established here, albeit it won't be for too long. As further back, Frankie D, who has pitted, all over the back of Garros Jr. here as they come through turn number 3 for the 12th time of asking. He wants to try and make a move happen as soon as he possibly can. And well, he's got the will, but can he find the way? And the American driver comes on down here. We ride aboard over the top of the driver. We sit with our camera. And the answer is he can't find his way into turn number 5. As into the pits off camera has come Adam Miles and Brian Kelly. They are both in from what was the lead pack, and therefore they're getting their pit stop out the way. As Steve really confident here on your screens. You can see it in the body language, the way he's driving the car at the moment. He thinks that he can pass Garros Jr. He's got the pace to do it. The only problem is Garros Jr. is putting himself right in the middle of the road, which is where D wants to be, if that's where the momentum is. And unfortunately, when there's a car in your way, you can't just simply plough through it. And indeed, all the drivers know that, but that's what's blunted his momentum so much so. But Otuga, Byfeldt, well, they stayed out with Wade and Perez behind them. Brian Kelly did come on in with Miles, so therefore we now have a top 4 that are staying out for as long as they possibly can, or at least for another lap. But will we see them reflect their way into the pit lane come the end of this one in order to offset what Miles is trying to do? Because Adam Miles has come up behind Steff Hermann. There is Hermann. He just went through your camera shot into turn number 3. So Hermann is the leading driver on the pit strategy at the moment. Has Steff Hermann pulled off a bit of magic here, or is it going to be Adam Miles now who can bring that gap down? Fastest lap of the race, it is currently owned by Adam Miles. It's an absolute monster of a lap from Adam Miles, a 30.18, where nobody else has been able to set a 1 minute 30. over the course of the race. He is the only one to do it. In fact, Christian Perez is the only other driver who's done it, a 30.64. So he has been almost half a second slower. Adam Miles in these conditions, plus a little bit of slipstream. Well, suddenly he really is now coming alive. Can he bring that gap down with 10 minutes left to go? As Otuga stays out, Nathan Wade also stays out, Christian Perez stays out, Marcus Byfeldt is in from the lead of the race. So he makes his way down to a stop. And now here we will see what's going to happen between him and Miles as Byfeldt's being serviced. Hermann makes his way on camera past turn number 10. But there is Byfeldt. Where is Adam Miles? Here comes Miles. He's a long way back. So in fact, it does mean that Marcus Byfeldt, as he makes his way down the start-finish straight, there they all in a single picture with Gordon van den Bergen splitting them. Albeit van den Bergen still needs to make his pit stop. But Marcus Byfeldt is now your strategic leader of this race, ahead of Steff Hermann and Adam Miles. That is your strategic top three, with Steff Hermann splitting them down the middle, and then we still have your top three overall who have yet to pit, and they need to fit themselves into that order. Further on back, Joshua Harley, well, he's enjoying a bit of a battle here with Remco Pleisier. Harley's on the left of your picture in the 57 versus Pleisier, who's on the right on the 117. And well, right now, Harley on that inside line, using the side draft there initially to come back at him. He'll take that place, happily so, into that braking zone. And Pleisier backs out of it, knowing it's not going to quite work out, as we do see Harley go a bit deep there, goes almost off the road, but he's able to carry enough momentum to keep himself comfortable versus Pleisier, even if he almost did send it to the grass and the tree line. And well, with regards to what happens if a car does end up in that tree line, ladies and gentlemen, well, you will see the car in question immediately towed to the pits. It's an automated rule on the iRacing simulator, as we don't see any cars end up in the tree line there, ending up trying to nest as if they were a bird. But as Harley makes his way on through, the number 57 driver right now, well, he's definitely enjoying a strong performance here compared to what happened in the sprint race. If he can keep this together, he could be on course for some rather good points inside the top 15. But looking from Joshua Harley to a bit further back, Tom Payne, where it all went a bit backwards at the start of the race, particularly on lap number 3 with the instant at turns 1 and 2 for himself and several other drivers. But still, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. It's chasing after Simon Wareham, and well, Wareham has yet to pit, whereas Payne has pitted, so that's one place he'll definitely gain in the near future. But then he's got a bit of a charge to try and hunt down Garros Jr., who is 6.5 seconds further up the road. But from them, we come back to the front of the field. Daniel Otuga, 2 seconds ahead of Nathan Wade. He is now putting in some very good laps to Otuga. His last lap was a 30.48, a personal best, and not far off of Adam Miles' best time of a 30.18. So Otuga right now is responding, and he knows that he's got to get the job done here. He's got to put in the effective equivalent of the best possible laps he can, or qualifying laps, in order to be able to try and hold on to this lead, as Wade and Perez, they have now fallen back a little bit. And I think it's Nathan Wade who has dropped down the scale in terms of pace slightly, as Christian Perez is all over the back of him like a bad rash. We ride on board here with your number 89 driver from Spain as he chases after Britain. The problem he's got now is the fact he's having to run to the pace of Wade rather than run to his own pace, as they slip and slide the way through turns 8 and 9. And well, Christian Perez at this time staying comfortably in the draft. Will we see him duck into the pit lane? Will he do the opposite of whatever Wade does? And in the end, he's too close really to be able to do that. I think if he tried to do it, he would send the car sideways onto the grass on the pit entry. So instead, Perez stays behind for a little bit longer. But you can see Wade really not comfortable with the way the car's behaving at the moment. Where again, those tyres, they do go through multiple heating cycles here. And Perez in the draft, he'll pick up a huge toe now as he makes his way down. And I think this is going to be Christian Perez's place to take all the way through turns 1 and 2, unless he makes a mistake on the brakes. But here we go then, onto the anchors, and Wade does look for the switchback. Perez in the end goes nice and wide, and in the end he goes a bit too wide, and Perez ends up falling off the road there for a brief moment, and Nathan Wade will come back at him here in towards turn number 3, and Wade in the end, he may not be the quickest, but he's definitely very consistent, and he is one of the slickest out there as they head out through the left-hander 3, and Wade right now proving to be a little bit of a hurdle, which Christian Perez is having trouble leaping over. But as Daniel Otuga now has a 2.6 second gap, Marcus Byfeldt is only 15 seconds behind them, and he is closing quickly as Byfeldt. So right now, it does seem as though, for Marcus Byfeldt, your run-up in race number 1, this might be a race that is gradually coming to him. It might be slipping into his hands very nicely, depending on the offset between his laps and those of Daniel Otuga. It's all going to come down to which of those two is the quickest driver, given the fact they are both running in clear air at the moment. And understandably, I think those who have stayed up for as long as possible, such as Otuga, well, they know they've got to pit at some point, but he won't want to pit until literally the very last moment, so that way he doesn't lose any tyre temperature. he keeps it for as long as possible. Looking back here. Oh, there's contact. That's going to be contact between Miguel Casina and none other than Gordon van den Bergen. And Casina's into the barrier there. That's coming down to turn 4 into 5. And van den Bergen's carried on. So he survived it, but Casina has not. As Christian Perez is into the pit lane. Well, we'll come to what's happening with Christian Perez first, as he's behind the barrier there. But we can probably see he's there. He's parked the car up in such a way that it's ready to leave the pit lane in the most efficient way possible. But as Marcus Byfeldt comes through, there is your strategic leader. Steff Hermann comes on past. Then it's going to be Adam Miles, or is it, as Christian Perez has just made his way out of the pit lane? There is Perez back onto the racing line, and Adam Miles here, he's going to have all the speed. He's going to have the best part of 20 miles an hour closing speed there, so Miles will get ahead of Christian Perez, but Perez will be firmly in his draft by the time they clear turns 1 and 2. So Perez has found the third place man in the strategic stakes, and now he needs to try and stay with him as Miles looks to try and pull away from the man who's now latched himself onto the back of him. But as Titus Young comes into the pit lane looking out McConaughey booth window, we need to understand what exactly happened between Miguel Casina and Gordon van den Bergen. So this was the pair making the way over the rise. 2 wide out of 3 in towards 4. And in the end there was a touch. Made the way even further down. A further touch here. And well, the front left of Casina hitting what was the rear right of Gordon van den Bergen's car. But van den Bergen was able to survive it. Casina was not. And this is what it looked like from the onboard of Casina as he made his way in. And when you see the initial tap, there it is. And now here we go for the second time. And unfortunately, it was wheel-to-wheel contact there, absolutely flush. But in the end, with the way Casina was trying to slow the car, and essentially the tyre would have rolled backwards towards what was the forward-going tyre of van den Bergen. That's why Casina came off the worst of the two of them. Plus, also on the inside line, he had a less stable car. He had more momentum shifting around at the rear compared to Gordon van den Bergen's machinery. But in the end, he was able to get it going, so thankfully not as bad as what we thought it would have been for the Spanish driver, but definitely a very frustrating moment there for both, but particularly for Casina. But meanwhile, into the pits, and this is a good time as Otuga makes his way out here. So he has called his pit stop with only 3 minutes to go. But here goes Marcus Byfeldt, and Byfeldt does retake the lead, but there's nothing between the two of them right now as the pit stops are complete, and it is going to be Byfeldt ahead of Otuga by 1 second as they come through. Adam Miles, meanwhile, he's side by side with Nathan Wade. He's going to clear Wade into the brains over turn of 1 with the fastest lap there of a 30.131. So Adam Miles has been absolutely going, but it may be right now. But for Miles, 4th place is the best he can achieve here. Wade's going to try and stay with him, and Christian Perez is 1.5 seconds behind, but Miles has already dropped Perez. He's hoping he can drop Wade at this rate as well, because after this lap they will potentially have another 2 laps to go. It's all going to come down to how quickly they clear this lap. They are currently running, it should be pointed out, the best part of 8 seconds slower compared to what would be their dry times on average. So therefore we are in the realm of this either being a 19 or a 20 lap race. It is going to be very marginal, and well, I can imagine right now there might be some question marks. Have drivers got enough fuel to get to the end based on that, given the fact we have seen every car actually take a little bit of fuel in the pit lane? It has not been a complete what has been a stop and go style pit stop. Everyone has put a small degree of fuel in the car, and I think that's just to give them some security in these conditions they can get in, and also perhaps to put some weight in the car to help balance the rear end of the car out, because the fuel tank of course behind the driver, and well, these are very lightweight machines. The engine is behind them as well. All the weight of the car is really concentrated in the mid rear section, and well, a little bit of fuel can also just help stabilize that rear end, particularly in slippery conditions. But with 2 minutes 40 left on the clock, we are going to see 2 more laps then as they make their way onwards, and I do believe our overlay in fact might have just glitched out on screen, but we can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it is still working on our end. We are going to try and get that fixed for you where we can. We do apologise for that, but for some reason it does seem as our overlay has decided it doesn't want to work anymore. But thankfully, due to the power of plan B, hopefully we will get our overlay back very shortly. But in the meantime, well, this is Marcus Byfeldt, your leader at the moment, holding on just about, but he does have Daniel Otuga and also Steff Hermann for close company behind as these drivers roar the way in towards the next set of bends. But up the hill they go, and as they do, through the left and in towards the right, well, it's going to be Byfeldt, Otuga, Hermann and Miles all together here. And in fact, Wade is being dropped a little bit. So Wade right now, this is not coming together for Nathan Wade. He is falling back to a small degree, and this might be now getting into the realm whereby Miles is the man to watch out for here, because he's got this lap plus 1 more to go, and Adam Miles is absolutely attacking right now. He is showing no signs of slowing down. He is absolutely going all in here, and well, for Adam Miles, how much further can he make his way forward before all is said and done? That is the question that we want the answer to, and we've just got to wait a little bit more as he continues to push on hard, and time is definitely of the essence for him. He needs to find just that little bit more. But of course, for Adam Miles, he's got to first take it one corner at a time here. He can't afford to make any mistakes as our overlay does come back to life. We do apologise for that. And Marcus Byfeldt right now holding on with Daniel Otuga, Steff Hermann and Adam Miles all there as they make their way onto the final lap. With 20 seconds left, they are going to squeeze in a 20th tour of the circuit. And as they roar the way down, will Marcus Byfeldt be able to hold on for his first win of the day? Or will Daniel Otuga make it 2 for 2? Well, Otuga's going to be on the inside here, and it's going to be a two-wide battle into the opening braking zone. Steff Hermann watching by, and Adam Miles also now encroaching. Nice and easy, straight on. Byfeldt goes to the grass, he goes to the gravel, and Marcus Byfeldt in the end, he just aquaplanes straight on. And well, for Marcus Byfeldt, he loses out. But here comes Steff Hermann now, and Hermann side by side here with Otuga. It was forward, now it's down to 3. Daniel Otuga defending as Hermann trying to go around the outside. Hermann's left it all late, but better late than never, they say, as they run their way literally wheel to wheel through turn number 3. They survive it, but here comes Miles. Does he go for the 3 wide? He's going to go for it. Miles looks all the way round. He touches the grass. He runs out of road, but he's still there. And as they come down the hill, it's going to be Miles on the outside. There's top contact between Summit and Otuga, but he comes back on. Hermann gives him the space to rejoin there. Brilliant sportsmanship between them all involved. And Adam Miles moves into second place unconventionally, but he'll take it as they now make their way through the hairpin. It's only now going to be another 4 corners to go as they come through turn number 7 in towards 8. Otuga ahead. Miles slithering all over the place here. He's trying to hold on. He's trying to push it just a little bit more as Daniel Otuga right now wants both wins. He wants the points. He wants to make sure that Steff Hermann's not the man to just run away again today. But as they make their way in towards turn number 10 right now, 1 corner and a drag race to the line. The checker flag awaits them, but who exactly is it waiting for as Miles looks to the switchback around the outside to carry the momentum, but he goes deep, and Daniel Otuga's going to have it, ladies and gentlemen. And Steff Hermann passes out of Miles. Daniel Otuga will make it back-to-back wins here at Summit Point Raceway, ahead of Steff Hermann, who finishes second. Adam Miles, that slight run wide on the final quarter, finishes third ahead of Nathan Wade. And Christian Perez will take 5th place ahead of Marcus Byfeldt, with Jeff Randall, meanwhile, 7th place, a further 9.5 seconds behind. Ahead of Brian Kelly, who takes 10th, takes home 8th, I should say. And then it will be Gordon van den Bergen and Miguel Casena who complete your top 10 as they make the one through. There's been a bit of drama for Frankie D on the final lap. He's unfortunately had to take the car to the pit lane off camera, but here's van den Bergen just ahead of Miguel Casena, and then it will be Joshua Harley with his best result of the season so far. Has come from 27th to an 11th place finish. Well done to him. And it will be Gauss Jr. and Titus de Jong coming across the line, 12th and 13th, separated by 2 tenths, and it's a further 16 seconds back before we do get to this man of Chris Wayne, who in the end may have started off with a dismal start in race 1, but he has kept it together here in race number 2 as he comes on through, and Wayne just ahead there of none other than Tom Payne, who completes the top 15. And then it will be Remco Pleister taking 16th place ahead of Jesus Cabal, who makes his way on down. In fact, he will be in 17th, Will Cabal, just ahead of Simon Wareham by the best part of 12.7 seconds. And, well, where is Simon Wareham, I hear you ask? Here he is in the all-white and green machine, the Leyland car. And unfortunately today for Simon Wareham, it has not been a day for some big points, but still plenty more rounds to come before the season is said and done. Marcel de Hint will take 19th just behind him. And then it will be Pedro Maron Cladera who will finish 20th, the last, I do believe, of your lead lap finishers. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race. And Neil Bamber saying it absolutely perfectly there on the YouTube chat, which is excellent racing. 100% agree, Neil. And we'll say all calm things on down. Right now, it has definitely been an absolutely exciting race, but we need to take a look back at that final lap, ladies and gentlemen, because goodness me, what a final lap it was between our leaders. And let's just take a look back at that action once again. So this was the fight going on to the final lap with the rain falling, and well, how the tables turned so quickly. Firstly, the big moment. Marcus Byfeldt on the right of your picture, side by side with Daniel Otuga, made his way into the braking zone and just goes straight on there, and he put his left-hand side tyres on the dirt there. That's what sent him wide. So suddenly it meant he was immediately out of the proceedings for this top 3. And now at this point, well, Adam Miles, we jump on board with him. And well, ladies and gentlemen, just hold on to your hat here. The thing about Adam Miles is he will go all in. His experience definitely shows. And as he made his way out to turn number 3, you could see the top 2 were fighting. There was some space on left. He thought, right, I'm going to go for it whilst there's tarmac to go with. And will in the end touch the grass there. Kept it on just by millimetres. A small tap there with the wheel of Daniel Otuga. I don't think there's anything they could have done about that. And I think Miles feeling as though second place would definitely be the place he'd take back in those proceedings, with Steff Hermann tucking in behind. And then for Miles at this point, it was all about seeing if he could find one last inroad versus Daniel Otuga. But at this point, well, where could he go for it? As they both slipped away for turn 7 into 8. Otuga avoiding those puddles as much as possible, maintaining the driest possible line he could. And Miles, meanwhile, trying to power his way through, when the grip level's not there, also trying to get the dirt off the tyres. That would have not helped him in terms of the grip. And then into the final corner, he looked for a potential switchback here, going all in. He went a little bit deep under braking. He wasn't going for the switchback. He carried too much momentum, washed out onto the exit curb, and at that point, my goodness, Adam Miles absolutely seizing control of the car once again. Unfortunately, lost second place to Steff Hermann, but he could have lost a lot more as they reached that checkered flag. But with the circuit falling silent, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to fall silent for too much longer, because we're going to make our way over to those race results. Here they are, subject to any stewards' inquiries from the round 14 of Season 5 of the Skip Barber Community Trophy, brought to you on iRacing and sponsored by Musical Money Limited and the Old Git Racing team. Daniel Otuga then makes it 2 from 2 here today in the state of West Virginia, but he did not have an easy way in doing so. But in the end, he made it happen by 6/10 of a second over Steff Hermann, with Adam Miles round off the podium there. And for Steff Hermann, well, he proved it in both races. He was waiting until the last possible moment, and that's when he made his charges. And a fall for the second for Steff Hermann definitely means right now it's going to be another big haul of points, and that championship lead is going nowhere but up. Adam Miles, well, he'll be a bit frustrated not to have taken the win, but definitely be very happy the fact he was able to keep the car together on that final lap, and otherwise what could have been a retirement from the race right at the end, or even a loss of a top 10. Nathan Wade, he was a further 2 seconds back, and well, the British driver couldn't quite catch up to the top 3, but he was able to yield the first place off of the podium there, particularly after Marcus Byfeldt's trip to the grass. Christian Perez took 5th place from the Spaniard, just ahead of the Swede of Marcus Byfeldt, who unfortunately lost the lead on the final lap after going straight on at turn 1. And then Jeff Randall, 7th place there for the Old Git Racing team, couldn't quite get back into that lead group after his pit stop definitely seemed to blunt his pace. Brian Kelly took 8th in the end, a frustrating race number 2 after starting on pole. An innocent mistake early on cost him dear, and after that it was all about trying to make sure he stayed inside that top 10. He was ahead of Gordon von den Bergen, with the German driver Chequered racing not quite able to deliver as a follow-up versus what his sprint race was, but still finished inside the top 10. Miguel Casina, he finished 10th in the end. It was not his race to be either after looking strong in the early stages. Unfortunately, the wet conditions just proving too much for him to handle in the 28, ahead of Joshua Harley, who conversely had his best result of the season, finishing in 11th there in the number 57. He was best of the rest, ahead of Christopher Garris Jr., with Titus de Jong for Raging Turtle Racing, finishing the best part of 16 seconds ahead of Chris Wayne, who in turn was 2 seconds ahead of Tom Payne. Remco Bleiser took 16th place in, a further 2 seconds behind after starting from the pit lane, and it was Jesus Cabal, Simon Wareham, Marcel Dehin, and Pedro Maron Cladera who completed your top 20, and with it the finishers on the lead lap. And outside the lead lap, don't forget about them, we had Frankie Dean 21st ahead of Dave Dowson, with Noel Richie Robinson the last of your lap down finishers. And then we did have your retirees of David Elliott, Roddy van der Meijden, Dennis Johansson with that early retirement after that huge instant earlier in the race, Ronnie Schubert, Ryan Chinaweth, and also Martin Van Ecklen in the end was a non-starter in both races due to a technical issue with the car. My goodness, ladies and gentlemen, what a pair of races we have had here for rounds 13 and 14. What a way to get the second half of the season underway. And well, as the rain continues to fall, we're going to step away from the rain for a brief moment and get ready for our post-round interviews. And indeed, I suspect our drivers have plenty of thoughts to share with regards to how their racing went today. So therefore, we're going to go quiet for about 3 to 4 minutes. But when we come back, it's definitely going to be a lively interview room. And we look forward to seeing what our drivers have got to say about the racing today at Summit Point Raceway. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to get our post-round interviews underway. And we're going to start with none other than one of our big stars at the front of the field today. It is none other than Adam Miles, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Adam, and well, what a day of racing it has been here at Summit Point. Wet, windy, absolutely slippery out there, and a double podium for yourself. How was it tonight?
It's a case of what could have been. Yeah, I mean, Daniel had really good pace in qualifying. Just messed up lap one slightly and couldn't quite recover the average. But yeah, I love driving in the wet, and so this was the week for me. Just unfortunate that had issues in the second race.
Oh, unfortunate. Not quite the way you wanted it to work out, perhaps, but still, exciting racing every step of the way. And just out of curiosity, with regards to the conditions, of course, we saw in the practice session some small damp patches on the circuit and the same in qualifying, only for then the conditions to evolve into much more standing water in what was the sprint race, and even more so in the feature. I mean, was it naturally progressing the way you wanted it to, essentially? The wetter the better?
That's how I wanted it, but the sprint race, despite drizzling for what seemed like 20 continuous minutes, the track just didn't get wet at all. Whether it was just insufficient rain or just the cars driving over the racing line, but you could still do, 1 minute 20s, dry lap times in race one. So it looked wet, but actually it didn't feel the slightest bit wet. But then time evolves. I think there's like 20 or 30 minutes between race one and race two in the sim. So I guess no cars on track. It got wetter. I think the rain came down a bit harder as well. And so, yeah, by the start of race one, I was happy with the conditions and thought I was going to have a quite an easy race actually.
Well, fair play. And talking a little bit about qualifying, just coming back to that, of course, one lap not quite working out compared to the others, and therefore not quite able to make up the average there. Was it just perhaps a little bit of caution, or was it just a lap that just slipped away from you?
A little bit of caution. I think I'd pushed on the outlap, which I don't normally do, just to see whether any of these puddles that you could see were affecting the car. And the car felt a little bit nervous into the turn 5 hairpin. So I think on lap one I was maybe just a little bit cautious. I mean, we're talking 2 or 3 tenths was probably all it was on lap one. And then once I realised that actually no, it's fine, pushed for lap 2 and 3, and yeah, it was so super close between sort of second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, all within about a tenth of a second. So I was happy to be on the front row.
Oh, and going into the first race today, the round 13 sprint, we saw the trio of yourself and also Marcus Byfeldt and Daniel Otuga naturally pull away from the rest of the field very quickly. I think there was a 16-car train fighting over fourth place towards the end. But for you three, it started off relatively standard, switch back and forth as we come to know and love in the Skip Barber Trophy. But around 6 minutes to go, it did seem as though things started to get a little bit more antsy than normal. Was that expected?
Yeah, I mean, I think with maybe 3 to go, you're just trying to position yourself somewhere. Once you've built up enough of a lead that you can fight for 3 laps or 4 laps, then you might as well do it. So Marcus tried coming from third through the field down into turn 1, sort of backed out a couple of times. But I could tell from that point that he was itching to get out of third place, and so I was happy to lead it at that point. Happy to be P2 if Daniel wanted to lead a lap, but just wasn't quite in the right place going into the final lap. Should have put myself on the right hand side of the track, not on the left, and so yeah, it really cost me in the final lap, and wasn't much I could do after that.
Well, it's unfortunate, making the wrong decision, but still, we got to see you finish on the podium come the end of the sprint. The feature, meanwhile, a very different story, of course, starting in what would have been 13th place. Open lap, however, you were shuffled all the way down the back of the order. What happened at the hairpin?
The hairpin was fine. It was 2 or 3 corners after that through the chicanes. I got the most almighty iRacing freeze I think I've ever had in 15 years on the sim. I could hear it. It was continuing, but the visuals were just completely static for probably 6 or 7 seconds. So I just, knowing where the racing line went, I steered off to the left, applied the brakes, and just had to sit in the grass until the pictures came back, and then figured out where I was and got back on track. I think about 12.5 seconds down, unfortunately.
Well, that's very unfortunate, but what we did then get to see was you make a very strong recovery drive. And I mean, on the opening what was about 5 to 7 minutes, with everyone adjusting to the conditions, we saw cars, as we were watching the replay footage of you making your way through the field, cars going left, right and centre, drivers going off, but suddenly you seemed absolutely in the zone to recover. I mean, were you worried at any point that at any moment a car could come across and perhaps collect me?
Yes. And in fact, I did get collected by somebody. Can't remember. I think it was an orange-coloured car. They spun in the same corner that I had to drive off the track in. I went to the right, got a whack on the rear left, and thought, oh, that's going to be a meatball. But fortunately, nothing happened from it. But yeah, I mean, there were just cars going off left, right, and centre. In fact, I'm just watching the, just saw on the replay getting whacked. So yeah, I mean, some of the back markers were okay. Some were letting you through on the puddles, but I just had the hammer down for that entire first stint up to the pit stops, and then managed to overhaul, I think, that whole 12.5-second gap to the leaders within about 10 laps. And so once I caught them, I thought, right, now's the time to pit. So that's probably why I went in first of the lead group, maybe bar Steff.
Well, it was very impressive to see you absolutely shred that 12-second gap down to nothing. And after the pit stop, we saw you in the end. You were full perfecti in the strategic order. And once everyone had done the pit stops, I mean, the laps you were pumping in, including the very last lap of 29.93, which I believe was the fastest lap of the race, so some bonus points coming your way. I mean, could you quite believe it when you got to the final lap? You were 7/10 off effecti, the leaders, as they went into turn number 1.
I mean, at that point, yes, because I was probably 7/10 off the leaders before the stops as well. I was hoping by going in early, I'd be able to put some on my pace to good measure. I think I encountered maybe a little bit of traffic, but by that point I thought, okay, I've caught them before the stops, so I should be in the hunt for the final few laps, and then I think I got past Nathan. I think I passed Christian maybe around the pit stops as well, and just. I knew I didn't have long. I think I had maybe, once I really got on the back of them after the stops, I had 1 lap, maybe 2, to try and do something. I just could have done with a couple more laps, and I think I'd have been okay.
Well, to be fair, whilst you could have perhaps done with a few more laps, I'll tell you one thing, Adam. You have this ability to find some tarmac that nobody else wanted to touch. I mean, 3 wide coming out of turn 3 down into 4, and in the end, skipping your way. And I'm going to say skipping in a skippy. Skipping your way around the outside, I think it was Daniel Otuga at the time, to try and make the move stick. You're crazy for it.
Yeah, that was probably the riskiest move of the race. I'd seen Daniel and I guess it was Marcus maybe go to turn 3 side by side, and I thought, this is it. Make the cutback, get the run out. Got past Marcus, got on the left-hand side of Daniel, and then he had the inside through the downhill right. And there's a big puddle on the inside, so I knew he was either going to have to crawl around in the middle line, or he was going to sort of take his normal line and see me out onto the grass. And it was more of the latter. There wasn't really a car's width left for me, but managed to get back on the track, and then that was probably the closest or the best opportunity I had. Just couldn't quite find some space around the outside, but also very lucky not to interlock wheels and end up in the fence either.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it was brave, it was risky, but you went for it. And it looked as though as well in the last couple of corners, particularly at turn 10, carrying a lot of momentum. You lost second out of that final quarter. Was it just a missed braking zone?
Yeah, I just wanted to be close to Daniel coming out the last corner in case he made a mistake. And I think just got a face full of spray that just meant I just missed the braking point slightly, and thought, uh-oh, I'm going to go into the back of Daniel here. So applied more brake, which of course in the wet just means you lock up, and so just skated a little bit wide and then out onto the curb. And then ultimately it's not going to make much difference to the championship. I'd rather be pushing to try and get the win out the last corner than sitting behind. So yeah, it would have been nice, of course, to finish second, but I think I had a good race overall.
I mean, it was a very impressive race. I definitely agree with you that you had a good one for your feature here at Summit Point. And with back-to-back podiums, 2 third places, of course, we now look ahead to our next round, which in only a week's time is going to be at none other than what will be the wonderful circuit of Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. How are you feeling for that one?
It's a technical track, not very drafty. I mean, there is one obvious overtaking spot. The rest of the track's very difficult to do anything. So I like driving at Mid-Ohio. We might not get quite the turnout got here, but I think there should still be plenty of drivers. And then Unfortunately, dry weather. Of course, I'd love another wet race. I think Jeff mentioned there might be another one coming later in the season. So I enjoy Mid Ohio, but I just got to make sure I put it on pole and make my car as wide as possible because it's not an easy track to overtake.
Well, fair play. We appreciate the insights from Mid-Ohio, and we look forward to seeing whether you can achieve putting it on pole and make your car as wide as you can in a week's time. But just before we let you go, Adam, as always, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to?
Just yourself this week. I enjoyed last week's broadcast and everyone that I've watched so far this season. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Well, Adam, it's my pleasure, and likewise, we enjoy having you in the interview room as well as seeing you out on circuit with your exploits. Congratulations today on the double podium. Appreciate it wasn't quite the results you were hoping for in the wet, but you gave us plenty of excitement out there, no doubt about it. We'll see you at Mid-Ohio in a week's time, but until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks, Paul.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Adam Miles, and understandably there, a bit of a frustrating day in a way in the fact that in qualifying, second place in the end was perhaps a bit too conservative on the first of his 3 laps, and that's what cost him the time he needed to be able to try and take the pole position, but still, lay the chips as they do on the table. And in the end, he tried to make his way forward in the race. In race number 1, well, trying to make his way forward in that 3-way fight for the win, but picked the wrong side to go to on the closing lap in order to try and make the move for the win, so had to settle for third there. And then in the feature race, where you saw right at the start on lap number 1, what was a technical issue in the end, so goes straight on, coming through turn number 7 in towards 8, went to the grass, but thankfully did not find the car damaged when he came back to being able to race, and in the end had to go on the mother of all recovery drives. Found himself being elbowed out every so often, but to be fair, the one thing you can always count on with Adam Miles, if it goes wrong at the start of the feature, he's going to be there at the end of it chasing the win. He was, and unfortunately went for the daring move, his riskiest move of the day around the outside coming down to turn number 4, and what in the end felt as though perhaps there was a bit less room afforded to him than perhaps there should have been, but he went for it all the same, kept it together, and well, had to settle for third in the end, but still, 2 third places, good haul of points, and therefore definitely keeping his sights firmly on moving up the championship. And at Mid-Ohio, where he's laid down the gauntlet there, a circuit that's going to be difficult to overtake at, and therefore he's going for one thing and one thing only, it's pole position and the track position he'll inherit as a result. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got another interview to come very shortly. Who's it going to be with? We're about to find out. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our second interview, and it's none other than Nathan Wade, who joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Nathan, and well, what a day today. It's been a day of 2 halves, not just because there's been 2 races, but because it literally has been a qualifying and a sprint session where 11th and 10th respectively, perhaps not your finest hour, and in the feature race, a full place, one of your finest drives of the season. But how would you put it in words?
Hi, Paul. Yeah, it's been a very difficult race. It's been exhausting. It's the first time I've driven in the wet, so I was massively excited when I found out it was going to be wet. Done a little bit of practice earlier today, and yeah, I was a bit cautious on quali, which is why I was back in P11, mainly because of that 3. You have to do 3 laps or whatever without getting an off track. So you got to be pretty clean on that. So there's definitely a few tenths. I could have probably gotten sort of top 7, top 6 there. And then yeah, the sprint was unfortunately my fault. I didn't realise how early Steff was braking. It caught me off guard. I would have made the corner, but then I would have also taken Steff out, so I had to avoid him. Went off the track, and I think I went back to P18, P19, something like that. And the sprint was just a brilliant sort of comeback race. Had good pace in that, and then the feature, well, talks for itself really. That was a very, very enjoyable race, extremely sketchy, and look forward to doing more in the wet.
Oh, fair play. I mean, it sounds like you've definitely had an enjoyable time, even if the sprint was a bit backwards at first. With regards to the sprint race, what I really want to talk a bit more about is the fact, obviously, in the recovery drive that you did make, falling down to the bottom end of the top 20, gaps between cars around here can be quite sizable once the field breaks apart. But what point did you become aware of the fact that Steff Hermann essentially was leading what became, with yourself included, a 16-car train?
I didn't even realise, to be honest. I was completely sort of zoned out of the pack, and I was just focused on that car in front. I kind of not gave up, but it's so demoralizing when you go wide and you sort of just see all these cars kind of come past. So I was just like, I'll see what I can get. I'm aiming for 15 so I can get into the pole for the feature. And then once you get to 15, just keep going as best you can.
I see. Well, in the fact that you kept going in the end, you were rewarded very nicely with it, with that 10th place finish, and therefore some good points to come your way. And in going into race number 2, as you were mentioning there only moments ago, a very enjoyable race. Obviously, the heavens had opened up between the 2 races. Were they conditions that actually felt, once you were in the car and had done a couple of laps, you know what, I'm going to really gel with this?
Sort of. I'm definitely not there with my pace yet, and it's still just sort of surviving. But I think just the sort of couple hours I did earlier on, just practicing in the wet, definitely helped out. And I wasn't expecting to lead the race at all, to be honest. But once I saw that I can't remember who it was actually. Someone went off in front of me, and it opened up. It gave me little memories back to the first season, which was a banging season. Just putting it out there. And I just tried to keep it on track basically. It's extremely sketchy everywhere you go, and when you're at the front, you've got no sort of idea where a good braking point is, where the puddles are. You're just sort of driving blind, essentially. So I was kind of glad once Daniel got past me and I was able just to kind of follow him around, and sort of build up speed that way.
Well, fair play. It's always good sometimes to have a pace car to work with in front, particularly if you want to build up some of that knowledge. And in terms of strategy-wise, I do have to ask out of curiosity, we did have the announcement from the organisers before we went racing today that the pit stop here may have been rendered obsolete because of the fuel loads. How did it feel strategy-wise? Was there that just stop-and-go style pit stop, or did you actually have to put fuel in?
I think I definitely put a little bit too much in, but I sort of worked out, I think it was like lap 5, that I could probably not stop and still finish the race, but I knew there's a mandatory pit stop, which is why I still pitted. I think I put in probably 1.5 litres. I think I had about 2 laps remaining at the end, so I could have probably left a good, I don't know, half a second earlier, maybe kept up with, possibly keep Adam behind me, and just keep up with him a little bit. But either way, I'm not too fussed about how it finished, because I'll take the P4 any day.
All fair play, and indeed in the company of some old rivals as well, such as Christian Perez, who finished behind you. It's been such a strong result. And can we expect more of the same, or even more then when we go to Mid-Ohio in a week's time?
Hopefully. I do actually like that track. I haven't driven it in years, obviously, but yeah, it's one of my favourites back in the day. So I am definitely looking forward to next week. Providing I get a strong quali, it should be some good battles.
Oh, 100%. We're with you on that, and we look forward to seeing whether you can be right in the thick of those battles. But just before we do let you go, as always, Nathan, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Just the usual. So yourself for doing a cracking broadcast, always a good watch on the old Mondays, and then Jeff for running the league, and everyone in the race today. It's been really good, fair driving all round, back in the first race and in that second race as well. And well done to everyone for keeping on the track as best as possible.
Well, Nathan, I mean, likewise, well done to yourself for not just brilliant racing in both races, but also thank you to you for joining me in the interview room. It's been a pleasure as always, and we look forward to seeing you at Mid-Ohio in a week's time, seeing what you can do there. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Nathan Wade, our privateer in the Purple Machine. And, well, what a 2 sides of a coin day he's had today. Qualifying the sprint didn't quite click together the way he wanted it to, particularly that sprint race where the early instance shuffled him all the way down the pack. But what a way to recover in the end, and recovering 10th. But admitting there the fact that he was more driving just looking forward and not really thinking out the places, and that his spirit had been slightly knocked given the fact he'd gone so far backwards at the start of the sprint. However, he was not to become demotivated necessarily. He was more just driving to survive, and as he then made his way to the grid for the feature, we found himself right towards the front of the field, of which were a few offs with several drivers in front of him, leading the race at some point, which he admitted that he didn't expect, and he was in some respects grateful when some of his rivals came on through and then took the lead off of him and essentially helped him learn the circuit and learn how to go a little bit quicker and feel a bit more confident in those conditions that he's been adapting to. So in the end, as he said, He's very happy with the 4th place, happy to take that, given the fact that it has been a challenging day today for everybody involved. And we go to Mid-Ohio, he's looking forward to that even more, and we look forward to seeing what Nathan Wade's going to be able to do there in only a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we don't have anybody else available for interview this evening, so therefore we are going to call our interviews there. But indeed, it has been an absolute joy to see so many brilliant battles up and down the field between our drivers. And well, we do need to give a quick shout out to Daniel Otuga, as whilst he wasn't available to join us for an interview this evening, he was of course able to put together an absolutely brilliant pair of races to bring on home back-to-back wins, and therefore the maximum race points he could compared to anybody else. But with that, let's wrap up our interviews and give you a reminder of who we've spoken to this evening. And so we've only spoken to 2 drivers. First up, we had Adam Miles join us in the interview room, the number 85 privateer driver who made sure to be in the top 3 in all 3 sessions, with a 2nd place in qualifying, translating into 2 third-place finishes. There was a little bit more in the score, but unfortunately couldn't quite achieve those wins. And then we spoke to Nathan Wade, the privateer, who had an 11th place start to his day, only to then recover to a 10th place finish in the sprint race, and then to impress himself even more with a 4th place in the feature. He's definitely had a very positive day to move forward from. A huge thank you to both Adam and Nathan for their time in the interview room, and well done to them both on their performances, and we look forward to plenty more from our drivers up and down the field at Mid-Ohio. But with that, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Skip Barber Community Trophy or how you can be on the grid in the series that continues to keep the Skippy alive year in, year out, well, for all that and more, we definitely recommend you join the beating heart of the community, which is the official Discord. Invite link available on screen there. Indeed, there's never been a better time to become a member of the Skip Barber Community Trophy Discord, given the fact this series is going from strength to strength, and whether you're an esports professional all the way through to rookie, there's a spot for you on the grid, no doubt about it. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our sponsors, who do firstly include Musical Money, the quick, easy and safe way to turn your unwanted musical equipment into money, no matter what your equipment may be. If you want to sell it, Musical Money is there to buy it, thereby taking the hassle out of selling your unwanted musical equipment. And with their groundbreaking website, as shown on screen, here it is. Selling your musical equipment could not be easier for a website which has put the user experience at the core of its design. So why not check out musical-money.co.uk today to find out how you can sell your unwanted musical equipment. And also, we'd like to say a big thank you to our other major sponsor for this series, ladies and gentlemen, and there's of course the Old Git Racing Team. Established in 2024, the Old Git Racing team aims to prove that age is just a number in the world of racing. Headed by Jeff Randall, the team races in multiple disciplines but is especially dedicated to the Skip Barber Formula 2000 machine. Regardless of the car, they aim to keep their racing fair and close whilst also respecting the fact that mistakes can happen to even the very best. But if you'd like to know more about the team, be sure to head to their Twitch channel, and that is twitch.tv/oldgitracer, as you see on screen, and you can check out their racing there, including their onboard perspectives from the Skip Barber Community Trophy Series races. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, where exactly do we head to next time? We said it several times, but let's say it again. We will be making our way to the US state of Ohio for the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. And with its undulations, its complex corners, and very limited straights, rounds 15 and 16 are definitely going to be all about track position, and he who dares wins into those braking zones should they be able to make some places. Come tune in as we carry on the story of Season 5 of the Skip Barber Community Trophy as of Sunday the 8th of February 2026. But until then, well, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the Skip Barber Community Trophy. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.